Okay, so I've just clicked start streaming, so hopefully if I now go live on click go live. Brilliant. So I think we are live right now. Just checking on my end. Let's see how that comes out. Yeah, so I believe we're live, so welcome to the live stream from Athens, Greece. I have managed to hodgepodge my way by taking my streaming kit laptop, and well, I've had to change the microphone, so you won't hear the audio just as good as it has been before. But hopefully it should work. If there are any kind of feedback or anything from the audio, just let me know and I'll adjust that. But the good news is we are live from Athens, Greece, and we are watching Sergey Kovalev versus Anthony Yarde, and I'll be bringing on my special guest Steve Wellings from the Boxing Asylum. As you can see, link to my Twitter at TakeAims and link to my Instagram at TakeAims. Do give them a follow, as well as subscribing to the channel if you're new here and clicking that like, as it will help me out loads. And then as well, hopping on over to at Stephen Wellings, follow Steve Wellings at Twitter. And then if you haven't listened to it already, I'm sure a lot of my subscribers will have listened to the Nuthouse Boxing Asylum podcast. Go over there, the link is in the description. Subscribe to that channel, start listening, and you'll love it like I loved it as well. So I can see, with those little introductions out of the way, Tommy Tempo Double T is in the chat. Hi Tommy, hi from Athens. What's hi in Greek? I don't even know. I literally only know Tikanis and Efkaristo or something like that. So, but Tommy Tempo, let's go champ, let's go champ, let's get this stream. Toby's third attempt. Toby, my good friend, let's go indeed. Smack that like button, guys. Yep, please do if you're in. Greek boy with the style. I got my Ahmed Kador shirt on, baby face. Yeah, I just needed something because it's so sweaty, it's so hot. So, anyway, like let's move on to a little bit of the boxing while we can. So, I've just seen that the Makabu, is it Papine undercard, well, the chief main has just finished. I didn't get to see the fight at all. I was just obviously setting things up and getting things ready and just typing a few things out. I believe Makabu's just won. I think one of the judges had the card as a draw. If anyone can fill me in on what happened and if it was a good fight to go back and watch, let me know, because I will do that after this live stream. But Makabu, as everyone already knows, I think he's been in the ring with Bellew, hasn't he? And they were at Goodison, weren't they? They were at Goodison. Bellew was had his moment in the lights in front of the Everton faithful. What a moment that was for him. And then it nearly kind of went all to pieces for him because obviously he got knocked down, but then he finished Makabu in style. That ended up with him getting that emeritus status, that kind of weird status for him, which allowed him to kind of flitter back, well, up and down the weight classes, and then eventually coming back down to get that fight with Usyk. And obviously we all know how that ended. But yeah, Makabu was on the chief support. We're just getting images live from Chelyabinsk. I think I pronounced it right. I've heard a couple of different ways on how to pronounce that, but I believe the kind of accepted way is Chelyabinsk and not Chelyabinsk. I've heard from Steve Bunce. If anyone's seen some of the Steve Bunce interviews, they're good, don't get me wrong. But then Steve Bunce, when he's interviewing Sergey Kovalev, will put on he'll put on that kind of, when you're speaking to someone, obviously they speak English, but they got an accent because they're obviously from somewhere else, and you maybe sometimes you might try to mimic the accent. Well, that's what Steve Bunce has done. So Steve has kind of adopted a bit of a Russian flavor to his tongue to speak to Steve. It's quite funny. I do recommend seeing some of those interviews just to get a little bit of a laugh out of Steve. But Steve obviously he's a big man, isn't he? Love me a bit of Steve. I haven't listened to his podcast though. Haven't got around to it yet. In fact, actually, I did listen to it. Then I dropped off of listening to it, and I've heard now it's been recommended by quite a few people. Just an update on my guest. My guest is, as he's just messaged me, he's just saying he's setting up his computer at the moment, so hopefully he shouldn't be on too long. Gremlins, or technical gremlins aside, these things can sort of happen where things can go wrong. But I think hopefully we'll get Steve on soon. This is what's the weather like, Toby? Toby says this is turning out to be a cracking bank holiday weekend. Yeah, what's going on with the weather? Because I've heard that it's actually quite hot back in the UK. So yeah, I've kind of missed out on that. Obviously, it's been absolutely blazing heat over here. It's been really hard actually to go out in the day. We've kind of had to wait till it's been 3, then to go out to see some of the sights and stuff. But yeah, I've heard it's been quite hot. And yeah, this maybe is kind of a way to top off the kind of weekend. Obviously, you got Monday and Sunday, Monday coming up, but yeah, a bit of boxing for the WBO title. An unknown in Anthony Yarde against an experienced 36-year-old Sergei Kovalev. It should be a great fight, whether it goes 12 or ends up getting or someone ends up getting blown out quicker than we expect. Who knows? I just think it's gonna be really fun. I'm just gonna test out my alerts and things. Hopefully they do come up on my side. So let's have a quick look. I've just done a what's the word? A unique kind of alert for this stream. So let's have a look at this. If I click that, there we go. That's quite loud, but I think it should come through. Let me check on my end if that comes through on the stream. Hopefully it does. Yeah, it does. Brilliant. So if you are new here, click the subscribe button and you're going to get that coming through on your end. Let me know if the audio came through on that. I didn't hear it on mine. Hopefully it did come through. Just going to listen to that back. Just doing a quick check and listening that back. Yeah, I think it did. Brilliant. Brilliant, it came through. That's good. So it's Tommy Temerson is really hot and was out just for a walk. It's lovely. It came through live. That's brilliant. So I think everything's set up on my end. I've got 6 people watching now. Thank you much for joining in. Let me know what you think of Yarde versus Kovalev. So I'm going with Yarde. I I don't really know why I'm going with Yarde. I'm kind of putting logic and the resume aside to to put for Yarde because I don't know, maybe I've been kind of taken by the charm that I've seen in the interviews. Obviously the guy's got power. The guy's massive. He's so thick. Like they kind of look similar, maybe when they look side to side, but then when they turn and face, this is what I saw from the weigh-in. You just see how thick set Anthony Yarde is. Massive neck, massive muscles. Obviously, it doesn't mean much for boxing, but it's just like you can see, and it has been seen that he does carry the power. Obviously, he's got to carry up through the levels in opponents, but in the opponents he has faced, he's ended up being able to knock out the majority of them. And then you've got, and that's kind of one of the reasons why I'm plumping for Yarde. And then, there's got to be something, right? I mean, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, don't like them in general, but there's got to be something in Canelo offering step aside money. Canelo wanted to step up to a higher weight class to fight Sergei Kovalev, which you'd think might be a step too far. But I mean, obviously, I know none of the ins and outs and such, but it's just a bit weird for me. It's just a bit weird for me that Canelo was looking to take that fight, was eager to, and then offered the £1 million sum to Anthony Yarde to get that step aside. So I feel there's something in that. Whether there is, I don't know, but that's just my hunch from hearing that. Which is why I think there's something there for Anthony Yarde to capitalize upon. Whether he will, whether he's got the skills, whether he's got the experience to do so. At the moment, I think he'll get knocked out. I think Yarde will knock out Kovalev. I went for round 9 when I was listening to the Boxing Asylum when they were asking what do the guys think. But I think it's going to end earlier. I think maybe even inside 5. I'm probably going to be really wrong. Probably going to be really, really wrong. But it's all part of it. It's all part of the fun, really, isn't it? But yeah, like I don't know. I think it's those sort of ingredients that I see from Yarde. That I think he will be able to step up, and there's just something people kind of seem to think, and I agree that Sergei Kovalev is slipping a bit. I mean, look what happened with him in the first fight against Elida Alvarez. Obviously, he was winning the fight. It's kind of agreed, and that's how I saw it up until the point that he got knocked out. But he got caught. And I think Anthony Yarde is more than capable of catching Sergei Kovalev, as I think any fighter would be, because obviously the idea of the puncher's chance. I just think it's probably just a little bit more than just a puncher's chance, which is why I'm going for Anthony Yarde. If I thought with my head and I thought logically, and Obviously, it's Sergey Kovalev, but wouldn't it be great? For me, I'm kind of banking on wanting to see a bit of chaos, a bit of an unknown coming through, and now taking his time. He's obviously taken his time, picked his opponents. That's definitely something to be said. But then announcing yourself, and what a way to announce yourself against someone who's kind of deemed as the modern great in Sergey Kovalev. You announce yourself against Sergey Kovalev by knocking him out in Russia, rejecting step aside money, and being, charming, braggadocious. I'd say brackets over and then end brackets confident as well. Um, yeah, it's something to be kind of admired, and that's what I want to see. That's what I want to see. Whether we will see that, I don't know, but that's what I'm kind of looking to be in there for. So Tommy Temperas, is Yard juiced or just great genetics? No idea, man. I mean, you can apply juice to almost anyone, can't you? I kind of like to think, hopefully, I'm just going to take a quick cig of water. Obviously, it's really hard. I'll put myself on mute. So I've just unmuted myself, hopefully. Yeah, I have no idea if Yard is juiced or not. I mean, maybe the guy, or maybe it is just genetics. There are loads of people. I don't know enough about that sort of area to kind of say if it is one thing or the other. I have got mates that think, I got a mate called G, and he kind of thinks that everyone at the high level is in some form on the source in some sort of way. Maybe he is, maybe he's not. Maybe he's just blessed. But if he's blessed with those genetics, man, am I jealous? I'm certainly not. But yeah, man. I mean, obviously, Fearon said, that he'd heard allegedly. This is allegedly, as he said, that Yard had popped for PDs. Nothing's come out at all on that. Don't know where he got that from. So whether there was any truth in that, I don't know at all. But gotta take it for how it is, and nothing's come out from him. So in terms of what he's in terms of what his PED status is, so therefore I can't say that he is on the juice as such. The Last King of Scotland is in the chat. Welcome, Last King of Scotland. Haven't seen you in the chat before, so it's a pleasure to have you here. If you haven't already, click subscribe to the channel. Hopefully there's a couple of things you'll like. I kind of do boxing on a different sort of lens and try to throw in a few jokes here and there. But it's a pleasure to have you here. Pleasure to have you interacting in the chat. Let me know what you think of the fight, Last King of Scotland. Do you think Sergey Kovalev will still be king by come 9:30? Will he be the reigning king of the IBO, or sorry, WBO belt? Hopefully not. In my opinion, I'd like to see Yard be the new king, the king in Russia, the last king of Scotland, and the new king in Russia has a bit of a ring to it. So I'm hoping that Yard is going to come through. Just going to quickly check my Twitter for my guest to see where he's at. I will just click the be right back very quickly, just so I can bring my guest in. Okay, so I've got Steve on the Skype. I'm just going to now bring him in. Let's see if I can do that now. Here we go. So Steve, I believe now, if I can give you a welcome, there's something that the Wolves want you to know. Forget the Lions. The host of the Best Boxing Podcast is on the show. Steve Wellings, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Ames. Thank you for inviting me. Good evening, everybody. Good to hear from you. And yeah, looking forward to a good evening's boxing action. If you can hear me, okay?
It's on my end. Everything sounds good. I will just check the chat. Hopefully, the chat can let me know if Steve's coming through crystal clear. I believe he is on my end, so hopefully that is coming through. But the chat should let me know. I've got a few friends in the chat who will give me the heads up if something's not coming through quite correctly. I will just quickly listen to it back. I'm past that point, but hopefully it will come up. But yeah, so have you catch any of the undercard at all?
You know what? I haven't. I was putting the youngsters to bed there. It is an early start, isn't it, with the main event, so I'm sort of behind schedule. I didn't see Makabu, though I believe he won the fight.
Yeah, same. I'm obviously was setting up. This is a little bit new to me, but good to kind of learn a few things in Athens as well. So I was rushing back from a couple of places. Obviously excited to get this all kind of set up and sorted and get you on the live stream. But didn't see some of the undercard. We'll probably watch it back. But exactly the same sort of thing I heard as well. That I think one of them was one of the judges gave the decision as a draw, which is quite interesting. I think I heard that correctly. But yeah, Makabu, I believe, got a knockdown and then got the decision. So where it goes from here, I'm not too sure, but I haven't quite heard if it was a good fight to kind of rewatch back. In terms, obviously, the fight that's coming up, I can see Anthony Yarde is getting his hands taped up as such, so he should be the ring walk should be imminent. I think 15 minutes. Steve, I was going to ask you for your kind of preview and how you see it's going to go down this fight. Who's going to win and how do you see it happening?
I think that it's a really interesting fight. I think there are a lot of questions that have to be answered and obviously will be answered very shortly. First of all, Kovalev has a lot of problems outside of the ring, but he's such an experienced guy, he's such an excellent boxer. Sometimes people him as a poor boxer, but this guy can box. He was an excellent amateur. He has superb power. He's beaten former world champions. I cannot look past Sergei Kovalev. The most interesting part about this fight is Anthony Yarde. He's such an unknown quantity. I don't know what he's going to bring to the table. I've seen him box before, many's a time on the TV, seen him box live. He's quite the specimen. He's a good physical guy, strong, he can punch. He picks his punches quite well. You hear about the sparring, the lack of, the amateur background, all those type of things. And I wonder, are they taking a punt on him? I mean, borderline cash out here. Frank Warren sent him over to Russia. If Frank Warren thinks that somebody is going to be worth the goods and they sell tickets, he builds you up at home, he gets you a title shot. Why have they sent him over to Russia for? For me, Ames, I cannot see past Sergei Kovalev. I could be completely wrong. They might have fooled the world, Mr. Tunde, Mr. Fearon, and all the boys, but I'm going for Kovalev. 5th round, knockout. I just have to go with what I see and what I know.
Steve, you're pissing all over my Yarde hype right here. You've properly crushed it. Yeah, like you're my head. You're my boxing head. That's what when I look at Sergei Kovalev, when I look at the resume, when I look at who he's been in with, what he's capable of, obviously his pedigree, I think he's going to win. You can't look past Sergei Kovalev, as you've said. But then I think for me, I just think I've watched maybe a few too many interviews. I've watched the Travis Reeves fight, the Stiloka fight, and seen a couple of things that he did well, and I'm buying in. I'm pretty much just buying in, going in with I want to see him with holding that title up like the Rock, saying "If you smell" in Russia in Sergei Kovalev's backyard, having knocked Sergei Kovalev out. I think what a moment, what a way to announce yourself in the light heavyweight division with that belt above you after having beaten a modern great. Now, I've got really not a lot to actually back that up at all, but it's just something I want to see. I think Puncher's chance is obviously something you'd say, but I think it's just a little bit more. I think Yard will be competitive. I said on your chat on the last podcast that you did that I went for Yard by KO in round 9. I'm going a little bit earlier now. I'm flittering between also round 5 and inside 3. I'm gonna go with inside 3 just to have a little bit of fun with it. So going with Yard by knockout. Just something that you said. Do you actually believe that they aren't actually incorporating any form of real training? Do you think that's kind of like a bit of smokescreen to kind of add to kind of the illusion or the mirage that Antiad kind of is, the unknown element of him? Or do you think that's actually really is the way Tunde is teaching and training Yard has been in the past and is in preparation for this fight?
You know what? Terrible answer, but I actually don't know. I
Hmm.
would imagine that it's a smoke screen. You would think
Mm,
that it's a smoke screen, but the way Tunde is, he seems so I don't know, confident, even bordering on arrogant. He's such a strange character.
mm,
There's a good chance that he could be telling the truth. But I mean, if he's not doing any sparring and all that, he has to be doing something in the gym. I mean, they can't just be doing the tippy tappy pads and that. They're
yeah.
going in against such an experienced guy. And look, I could be completely wrong here. I'm wrong all the time with my predictions, and you could have it nailed on. But just Kovalev is a proven entity for me, even though
Yeah.
we know he has problems outside of the ring and that the guys, even problems that people don't even talk about
Yeah.
are off the record and that. He is a maverick, to put it lightly. And the problem for me is the training situation. Buddy McGirt apparently wasn't with him until late. He's been training with this
Oh,
Russian guy.
okay.
We know he's weak to the body. We know he likes a drink. There's nothing wrong with that. That's not alleged. That's true. So
Hmm.
if Anthony Yarde can last the pace and the fight goes on a bit longer, then he might have a chance. And look at Kovalev's last fight, right, James, against Alvarez.
Hmm.
He was punch perfect, but also Alvarez made it so easy for him. Tall guy, looked very limited in that rematch. Kovalev did not give him the opportunities that he gave him in the first fight. So as much of Kovalev's performance is down to Alvarez not adapting as much as it is to Kovalev adapting. So you never know if Anthony Yarde can do the job, maybe rush him early on, hurt him,
Hmm.
bring those demons back. There is a chance, but at the moment, I just have to go with what I know, and Kovalev for me is the proven entity.
No worries. Just a few people in the chat. So we have the Last King of Scotland giving you a shout out, saying, "All right, Steve." We have KJ saying, "Yard by first round. Look at the condition Yard is in to beat this guy, and look how much better, faster, and stronger Yard is in the ring." KJ, I haven't seen you in the chat before. Welcome to the channel. Just while we're on this point, if you're new here, click subscribe and smash the like button as it helps out loads. Follow me on Twitter at TakeAims and Instagram at TakeAims as well. And also follow my special guest, Steve Wellings, host of the Nuthouse podcast from the Boxing Asylum. It's at the Boxing Asylum on YouTube, THEBOXINGASYLUM, and on Twitter at Stephen Wellings. Then we have the Last King of Scotland saying, Yard needs to stop him, no chance of a decision in Russia. And KJ again, Furies beat people overseas on decision. Yeah, so that's a good point in terms of the home crowd, whether he gets.
Yeah.
We've got our own share of kind of dodgy decisions on our shores, and I think obviously what with the shroud of mystery that Russia kind of is, it's kind of been assumed that Yard can't, maybe in terms of experience in boxing wise, he wouldn't be able to get a decision, and then in terms of on the cards that he wouldn't be able to get a decision either. Just moving on from that though, let's the thing I kind of gleaned from this is the thing with Yard is even if he loses, we still don't kind of know where he stands in terms of his ability because he will have only just lost to Sergey Kovalev, who's obviously the elite level in that division. It would just mean that kind of he's not ready for the elite, but but obviously he's better than the Travis Reeves kind of level. So, to be fair, I think coming from the aftermath of the fight, should Yard lose, we still don't actually know too much about him, which kind of feeds into that unknown element of Anthony Yard. Do you see kind of Yard as can pinpoint where his ability kind of stands right now, or are you kind of in the same sort of camp?
No, I'm in the same camp as you, and I actually not sure whether his team, maybe not Tunde, but the likes of Frank Warren, even Yard himself, I don't even know if you know where he's at the moment. They've circumvented the British title level
Mhm.
for whatever reason. His best wins against Sejloka, which was a
Mhm.
very good win, given that Sejloka had gone the distance with Stieglitz, very experienced guy. Yard blew him away, but I'm not sure where Yard is at the moment. And if he loses to Kovalev, the manner of the loss, if indeed he loses, I mean, if he wins, obviously it's a completely different conversation. But if he
Yep.
loses against Kovalev, it's the manner of the defeat. If he gets
Right.
banged out in the first 3 rounds, does absolutely nothing, then we can glean, obviously, maybe his technical ability from that. But if he goes late in the fight, maybe gets stopped late or goes to the cards. By the way, gentleman who mentioned the cards, absolutely right. He ain't getting no decision over there. But if he goes late and then gets knocked out, then at least we can say he put up a good fight. He'll tick the boxes tonight on his chin, on his stamina, we hope,
Mm.
on his boxing ability as well, and on his power. Because people
Mm.
say, oh, he's a big puncher. Is he a big puncher at the elite level? He's knocking at guys like Walter Sequeira,
Yep.
the Argentine guy, a lot smaller. Darius Sek, never heard of him. Nene Sapati, same again. Travis Reeves, decent guy. Bit suspect in and around the chin department. So does Yard's power travel up to the top level? We're
Yep.
going to find all these things out tonight. So it'll be very interesting in the manner of victory or defeat for Yard. We'll hopefully find out something about him.
Yep.
We might find absolutely nothing about him. He could still be an enigma. That's why the fight is so intriguing.
Yep. That's kind of leads on nicely to segue into my next point. Are you hyped? Does this unknown element get you hyped? Because I think for me it's been a little bit slow recently in terms of boxing, and I think these kind of elements of the unknown and then the modern great in Sergei Kovalev has kind of formed together to kind of hype me up for, obviously as well with Yarde being British and the titles on the line and the kind of weird area. It's got me hyped for it. Whereas no disrespect to, let's say, Hooker versus Ramirez, I know they're really good fighters, but I just kind of wasn't. It didn't kind of grasp me as much as this fight has. So are you hyped for the fight?
I certainly am hyped for the fight because of Anthony Yarde's position, but also because of Kovalev. I like Kovalev's fight. I'm not saying I like him as a person, but he brings intrigue. He's interesting. You never quite know what he's going to do. He's a bit of a nutter in and out of the ring. He's like, as Andy Patterson described him as again, excuse my French, he's like a glorious bastard, isn't he? You don't know what, you never really know what he's going to do. I mean, he has the dark side to him as well. He enjoyed beating up Jean Pascal in front of his daughter. That guy has died in the ring. Obviously, not laying any blame at the feet of Kovalev, but this is a guy who he doesn't care. He goes in there to hurt people. I enjoy watching his fights because he has that element of intrigue about him. You never really know what's going to happen. So yeah, absolutely hyped for this fight. I think it's a really good fight.
Brilliant, yeah. Again, like those things I've just said before. I'm gonna repeat myself, but yeah, I want to see obviously the Britain come home. I want to see, with the belt. I want to obviously see an upset. You know, obviously, I think for me, I know the betting odds. I didn't check them, but they're quite close from the last time I did check. But for me, I think Yard is the underdog. Um, obviously in terms of experience, etc. So for me, I would like to see the underdog kind of come through with the shock, kind of introduce a bit of an element of chaos. Obviously, because there are plans that we've kind of heard. Kovalev didn't want to go through the details kind of too much in his pre-fight interviews, but he was asked about the Canelo fight, which is kind of dangled in front of him, which should hopefully get him motivated. As you said, we don't know which kind of Kovalev will kind of turn up, but hopefully, if you're in the Sergei Kovalev camp, that kind of carrot, the money that's on the line and the exposure that's obviously on the line, being a massive fight like that against Canelo is potentially there. But Yard winning introduces a massive element of chaos. Obviously it sets those plans up in fire. I imagine a rematch would have to happen if Kovalev was usurped by Anthony Yard. And then obviously as well, there's also the kind of floating around about this tournament that might happen between the light heavyweights in Beterbiev, Bivol, Kvodzik. Obviously, a couple of them are fighting together. I think Kvodzik's fighting. I can't remember who it is, but two of them are fighting. But there was the idea of this tournament that's going to happen for kind of to unify the belts and that kind of thing, which obviously, well, this might put a bit of a dampener on that, and obviously with the other fighters fighting as well. But there was that talk of that happening. But Yard winning would introduce kind of chaos, which I kind of want to see. It'd make it kind
Yeah,
of interesting.
it
Yep.
would, because the 175-pound division at the moment is very interesting. Kovalev moves away to fight Canelo. That's obviously happens in itself. But you've got Gvozdyk is fighting Artur Beterbiev. So
That's the
that's an
one.
IBF
Yeah.
WBC unification.
Yeah.
I believe off the top of my head that's supposed to take place on October the 5th. You've
Right.
also got Dmitry Bivol, who's a smaller guy, but technically sound, could be the best of the lot. And then you had Marcus Brown, who I thought was really improving, looking like a decent fighter. Lost a technical decision, showed chin vulnerabilities against John Pascal in his last fight. So Pascal's right back in the mix again, even though he's already lost twice to Kovalev. It's an interesting division. There's guys even below those type of levels as well that you could still throw in the mix. I mean, I'm not saying I necessarily want to see Jesse Hart or Badu Jack, but there could be interesting defenses. So if Yard to win or Kovalev to win the light heavyweight division, we'll throw up plenty of opportunities for them.
So we have KJ in the chat saying, not really, Yard will go for the KO anyway, so it doesn't really matter about decisions. I think that's what he's got to go for. It makes sense that he has to go for that as well. We have G Lung in the chat saying, Crusher by 10th round TKO. KJ bringing up again the fact that Yard turned down a mill for this fight. It just shows how much confidence he has about winning. I agree. I think there's something in that. I think there's something in the step aside element that was offered to from Canelo, and then obviously then Yard and his team taking the fight. Last King of Scotland says he's getting 4 anyway. I think that's 4 million, £4 million for fighting which is fighting Sergei Kovalev, which is kind of the rumored amount that's flitted around about how much he's getting. So
Yard's meant to be getting that amount.
yeah.
Wow.
So
That's big money, yeah.
that's what I've read. I don't know if that's there's any credence to that. Look, just seen Sergei Kovalev I think he's finished getting his hands wrapped, and there's a bit of a light show going on. So hopefully we should get the ring walks imminently. I think there's just some. I've got it on ESPN. Have you got it on BT Sport, Steve?
Yeah, BT, we've got a
Okay.
light show at the moment.
Yeah, I can see the same thing. Hopefully we're matched in terms of where we are in the fight. So we've got the kind of synced up. But while we're waiting, let's just have a quick dip into kind of what's happening next week. So we've got obviously the massive one, which is Lomachenko versus Luke Campbell. Now George Groves has been hyping up Luke. It feels like to me it's kind of a hyping on to nothing, if you will. I mean, I get a little bit frustrated with the Matrix kind of hype thing with Lomachenko. It's a little bit cringe for my liking, but I have no doubt in terms of his ability and the stuff that he does in the ring. It's a little bit hard for me to follow because obviously I'm no expert in some of the things, but what the things that he does are amazing. When I do see them, he's great. He's fluid to watch. And I think Luke Campbell's in the deep end next Saturday, I believe. Do you see Luke Campbell in the deep end yourself, Steve?
Oh gosh, yeah, he's in the deep end, all right. That's for sure. Now, saying I don't think Lomachenko is going to blow through him like many people think. I
Right.
think
Okay.
Campbell's tall, he's strong, he's physically fit guy. Showed against Linares, he can handle in this type of area. Apologies, I think my sound has just come on there. Yeah, so I do think Lomachenko is going to win the fight, but I don't think it'll be necessarily as easy as some people think. Even though Campbell lost to Mendy, he seems to have learnt from that fight, and with the Olympic background as well, extra experience. I can see him pushing Lomachenko, not close, but to points at least. I don't think he's going to blast it
Right.
out. What do you
Okay.
think? What round are you going for?
Yeah, I think he's gonna get blasted out. I really do.
Do you think so? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't not rate Luke Campbell. I just think Lomachenko is, the cliche is levels, and Lomachenko for me is levels above, pretty much. Yeah, I don't really see a contender at the moment for Lomachenko in my opinion. I think he comes through Luke Campbell probably similar to the way he came through Anthony Crolla. To be honest with you, I think this ends pretty early. I'm pretty. I think they need a card, a card that will go long. So the fear perfecting thing, I think that will end up going long, and people will probably get their kind of money for the fight in terms of lengthwise. But I think Luke Campbell will end up getting stopped quite early to Lomachenko. I think he's too much for Luke Campbell in my opinion. I know that he's got obviously the Olympic background. He's capable. Like you said, he's tall as well. But I just see Lomachenko as too much for Luke Campbell, unfortunately. For my take anyway. But hey, I could be wrong just as much as I could be wrong for this fight here tonight. We're just getting the announcers coming in now, so I believe they're announcing the fighters coming to the ring. There should be a couple of moments before we get the fight. I'd like to kind of see the fighters, inspect them closely on the ring walks. Obviously, a lot was said about the ring walks for AJ versus Ruiz. People kind of saying that Ruiz AJ kind of looked off. So I don't know if we were able to see some tells maybe, the kind of cliche tells that we see from the weigh-ins. They look into their eyes and they say they can't take it. Well, on the walk in, you might be able to see a few things like we did with Joshua. People kind of think that Joshua was kind of off from the walk in, and obviously when he got into the ring. But I think Kovalev will come out naturally intense as he does. Yarde, I'd be nervous if I was Anthony Yarde, but I'd be also excited as well. But yeah, moving on from that whilst we're waiting as well. AJ versus Ruiz is signed. It was reported that there's no more friction now in terms of Ruiz fighting in Saudi Arabia for the rematch. Strange kind of place, and you can kind of talk until the cows come home, read the politics, which I think is another issue for another day. But in terms of money, I don't personally really begrudge them getting the money for the fight. Boxing obviously is a cruel sport. One day you're flying high, and the next you aren't. Obviously, as AJ's kind of proved. So get your money, and hopefully, for me, he brings back the belts. Because no disrespect to Ruiz Jr., whilst I do think there would be great fights, I'd rather see the Joshua and Fury fights and Joshua Wilder fights than I would the Ruiz Jr. and Ruiz Wilder fights. What's your kind of taking on the AJ Ruiz kind of situation, and maybe a bit about how you see the fight going?
Well, first of all, I always thought that it would be signed, sealed, and
Mm.
delivered. I do put faith in Al Heyman. I'm not trolling when I think he's the best promoter in the sport. He knows the game inside and
Not
out. So he's
Eddie.
obviously given the No, well, no. You know what? I will give Eddie his credit. I know that we slam him and stuff on the Asylum, but he's a damn good promoter. He has his strengths as being a sort of face of boxing and a salesman, but behind the scenes, I think the likes of Aram and Heyman, that they've been around in the game for a long time. And there's a reason behind that. They know the sport inside and out. But Eddie, has his strengths, and he is a very, very good promoter. I didn't doubt it was going to happen in Saudi Arabia, and I'm not surprised that people have started going to Saudi Arabia because obviously
Yeah.
that's where the money is. And
Hmm.
fair play to them. I hope they both get paid very well. But as for AJ, I I'm struggling to see how he switches things around from the first fight. As for Ruiz, though, has he been training properly? Some people are saying that maybe he's been enjoying the
Yeah.
talk show life a little
Yeah.
bit too much. But behind the scenes, you've got guys like Manny Robles. They know the sport as well. They'll be keeping him in check. And I think even though he looks like a bit of a fat dude, as we all see, that roly poly belly, he has that fight fitness, the fight fitness of a guy who's been in the sport for a long time, and he would have built up that engine, that gas tank over time. And his main asset for me is his ability to time punches and especially throwing with AJ. So I think he brings a lot to the table that's still going to give AJ problems. Can Joshua adapt enough to deal with Ruiz? I know it sounds like a strange thing to say given the
Yeah.
places that they've come from
Yep.
and the way they've been built up in the sport differently, but I think Ruiz's combination punching, his ability to find the target fast and often, is going to give AJ a lot of problems. And if Joshua can keep him on the end of the jab, I can see him getting the win. But for me, I think that Ruiz causes him a lot of problems stylistically and skill wise. And I'm going to go for Ruiz in this rematch, to be honest with you.
So do you don't think Joshua could box to that kind of conserve style for him to bring home the win?
Yeah, no, I think he could. I think he could. It all depends where he is mentally, where he is physically.
Hmm.
McCracken's a good coach. There's
Hmm.
no doubt about it. He'll do all he can. But once he gets in the ring, can Joshua adapt? I think that these guys they get paid a hell of a lot of money, and I'm not against that. I'm in favour of that. But I think sometimes they almost get paid too much money, and when push comes to shove, you see the guys like your Eric Moraleses and your Barreras and your
Hmm.
Juan Manuel Marquezes. No matter what they're getting paid, you see them bite down on that gum shield, and it's professional pride. At their peak, these guys wanted to fight and they would win at all costs.
Hmm.
Now, this is no knock on guys like AJ, but I see that bit of softness. You see, whenever Canelo fought Danny Jacobs
Yeah.
recently,
Yeah.
Danny Jacobs, I thought, coasted in the last few rounds.
Hmm.
And somebody said on Twitter, which I thought was a good point, he got paid $12 million. Maybe he was happy with his money. And that's the problem. Maybe they're getting paid too much money. So they're a little bit too comfortable, which is absolutely fine. But whenever you get to that real push and shove, that grit of the fight, do they really want it as much? And I'm wondering whether AJ, with $100 million in the bank, I sure as hell wouldn't want it that much. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, exactly. I know exactly what you mean. You're listening to the host of the Nuthouse podcast from the Boxing Asylum, Steve Wellings, and you're listening to Take Aim's. Smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you're new. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Take Aims, and follow Steve Wellings on Twitter at Stephen Wellings, and subscribe to the Boxing Asylum as well. Listen to the podcast. It's on every Sunday. You go live from, it's 8, isn't it?
Yeah,
You
eight
go live
o'clock
from
on Mixler now. Yeah.
8 p.m. on Mixler. The link is in my description to the Twitters, Instagrams, and obviously the Boxing Asylum. Listen to one podcast if you haven't. I'm sure quite a lot of you here that are from the Boxing Asylum's chats as well. But if you haven't, listen to one podcast and you'll be hooked. That's pretty much how I've kind of found kind of the Boxing Asylum myself as well. But yeah, just on Ruiz and AJ as well. He has to come with his A game. He has to get those belts back. He has to have that passion. He's kind of been intimating that he doesn't have, or maybe he might have lost that passion a little bit with the money in the bank and the kind of model type Instagram following that he does have. Is it really there for him anymore? Don't know. It's going to be easier said than done to be able to, box conservatively, for my opinion. But I think when I came onto your show, I was probably speaking a little bit emotionally, kind of saying that maybe wholesale changes were needed. I think I've kind of taken a step back and kind of maybe thought now. I think AJ's capable of boxing conservatively. Not going in with wild hooks when it's not kind of necessary. Just going to interject because we just have Anthony Yarde's made his way to the ring. Pretty good presentation. I quite like that myself. Better than Norman. I'm really glad we haven't got any Sweet Caroline as well. He came out to the If You Smile from Rock and then it diverted into a different song. Really good entrance. I'm a bit of a fan of the kind of light shows and entrances. Love the sort of Prince that he's
What
seen
about the
happens
belt on the
once.
line? The European Parliament Boxing Parliament Championship is on the line, which is always a plus for me.
What on this fight?
I saw a guy with an EBP belt. I'm
No,
assuming
it's
that's the
not.
European Boxing Parliament.
No,
I
it's
imagine so.
not. Well, yeah, that's one for your one of the strangest ones I've heard for a while. Prince Patel might be fighting for a version of that in the coming months. Yeah, I've just seen it. Yeah, I've just seen it. So I'm a little bit behind you, which is no problem at all. I've
Yeah.
just seen it. So yeah, okay, two belts on the line here. Somewhat of a unification maybe. The EVP, if that kind of gets catapulted into the sphere, I'm sure it won't. Sergey Kovalev is about to make his way as well. But just back while we're waiting to the Anthony Joshua situation. Yeah, maybe not wholesale changes, just needs to box to a plan, not get carried away with hooks, not get carried away when you do if you do knock down Ruiz like he did last time. He got a little bit too carried away, wasn't ready to go. Like, I'm not a trainer, but I think AJ can box to that plan, and if he does, I believe hopefully that he'll come back with the belts. Because again, I want to see the two fights with Wilder and Fury, but he's got to earn it. Otherwise, it's going to be Ruiz who's going to be fighting those fights. And then Ruiz kind of said, "I'm going to end AJ's career," which is a big, bold statement. But maybe looking back, thinking obviously now it's a bold statement. But if we look back, 3, 4, 5 years in the future, because currently, obviously, Ruiz will go on with the belts, those three belts, and then Joshua, Fury, and Wilder are doing their own thing. He might get frozen out. So what belts he's going to fight for, and who can he kind of fight to kind of build himself back up? Which might mean that statement of AJ's career kind of being over and done with might actually be come to fruition. So is that a big and bold claim for you? Or is that actually something that we could actually see for AJ?
I don't think his career will be over because he'll always have an audience back at home, but it'll do a hell of a lot of damage. Now, the
Mm-hmm.
belts are obviously, we know a lot of them are nonsense and politics, but the belts are very important here. They were talking before, whenever they were trying to get Ruiz into Saudi Arabia, that when it comes to the titles, they were going to go through courts to try and force it through. That was the last thing they wanted. They want to keep Ruiz with all the belts because Joshua, for them, has to defeat Ruiz and take the belts back. The last thing they wanted was the likes of the IBF, who we know are a little bit twitchy, to start stripping. Then the
Yep.
WBO were trying to push Usyk forward, but you don't want the belts to start getting stripped and getting splintered off into different directions. That was the last thing they wanted. They want to beat Ruiz and take them all back again. And another point I was going to make just before I forget is about the pressure on AJ. I think Robert McCracken on the night, as much as a coach, he's going to have to be a therapist in the corner because he's going to have to manage AJ through those 12 rounds, isn't he?
Yep.
Because I think Joshua, to be fair to him, fights with a hell of a lot of pressure on his shoulders. Now, this is what they wanted. This is the way he's been built up. This is the way that Entourage have made it, Eddie and everybody. If you have to make the money, then you're going to have to live with the fame as well. And I've said it before, sometimes you see AJ standing in the ring and he's just like that lad from the streets who, I'm not saying he doesn't want it, but it's difficult. The guy has a lot of pressure on his shoulders. The pressure of a nation, the pressure of the heavyweight boxing, all this money, all these sponsorships are all riding on his shoulders. So McCracken is going to have to keep him on point. He might get knocked down in, say, the 4th round or the 6th round. How does he respond? Does he get back up and mentally stay on point, keep boxing, stay to the game plan, or does he fold? Does he crumble? That's going to be the interesting question. Robert McCracken, for me, is going to have to try and manage him through that and coach him through that and try and keep him going. He tried in the first fight and he failed. Not his problem, but he wasn't able to do it. Do you remember that? Josh, come on, Josh, focus, Josh. He was really trying, and he wasn't able to do it. And in the end, Joshua didn't want it anymore. So McCracken is going to have to try and get that sorted out as much as anything, I think, because it's a hell of a lot of pressure.
100%, yeah. For me, obviously the pressure might have got too much to him the first time round. And yeah, you just wasn't able to G him up, was he? Part of that was probably for me. I'm in the camp of he got concussion. I don't think he really kind of knew what was going on. He asked multiple repeat questions of what was the shot, what was it that caught him? What do I do? Apparently, that's not too alien in their corner of them having conversations to that sort of degree. But yeah, it's 100%. It's gonna be very interesting if Anthony Joshua can deal with that pressure. There'll be a lot of expectancy on his shoulders. People will obviously be wanting to get him back on the belts as well. So yeah, hopefully he'll be able to come back with the belts. It's just a massive ask and a strange kind of scenario that he's finally fighting in Saudi Arabia. And just to bring this back, a strange area we're fighting in as well is Chelyabinsk in Russia. Sergey Kovalev has just made his way to the ring. didn't get quite listen to the music he got into. I wasn't quite sure. I think it sounded pretty Russian. But we're going to get the official introductions. So we're two fighters are now in the ring. Fight's going to be starting pretty soon. So get your predictions in. Let me know what you think. Just going to dip into the chat quickly. We've got Get the Smoke, who's in the chat, saying peace everybody. Peace to you, Get the Smoke. Good to see you here. Kovalev getting the big entrance from the last king of Scotland. I said to the last king in Scotland, you might be the last king, but might get the king in Russia, being Anthony Yarde, dethroning the current king in Sergei Kovalev. Last king of Scotland also thinks that he might have Canelo on his mind, though, which with Anthony Joshua, as we link it back in, he was talking about that during his time. He had Fury, Wilder on his mind, and wasn't quite concentrating on the opponent in hand in Andy Ruiz Jr. And look how that kind of turned out. So Sergei Kovalev better not be overlooking Anthony Yarde, otherwise he could find himself in a similar sort of situation himself. Tommy Temper is asking what was the purse split for this fight. Am I right in saying that when the title's on the line and you're mandatory, there is a definitive split? Is that correct? The last king of Scotland is thrown in that he thinks it was 75-25. Steve, are you aware if it's that's the split?
In this particular one, I was going to say usually around the 80-20, 70-30 mark, isn't it? So let me see. Not 100% sure, but yeah, that we'll go with that.
Okay, fair enough. Well, like has been said earlier, he's he's getting somewhere between 1 million and what's been reported as around 4.2 million. We have I believe a Russian fella in the chat. I don't know how to pronounce your name. If you let me know phonetically, I will. He's saying hello. Nice to meet you, mate. If you're new here, like this Russian fella is, I haven't seen him in the chat before. I believe he's Russian anyway. Do subscribe to the channel and click the like button, as it helps me out loads. My link is to my Twitter is TakeAims, my Instagram is TakeAims as well. And I'm joined by today, very appreciative of my special guest, Steve Wellings from the Boxing Asylum, the Nuthouse podcast. Subscribe to the channel, the Boxing Asylum, TheBoxing ASYLUM, and follow him on Twitter at Stephen Wellings. Listen to the podcast once and you'll be listening to the podcast forever. It's one of those kind of shows. Last King of Scotland says as well that this is regarding the money that Yarde is receiving. That was the reported split by the reported money by ESPN and Top Rank, but they don't look alike. Yeah, that was the reported split anyway.
Yeah, Yarde's mandatory, isn't it? So we're looking 75, 20, 3/4. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so I mean, how it works out, we don't really know. They're not kind of announced as much as maybe they do with like a kind of American, when we see American fighters kind of in the ring and such. They're kind of a bit more open.
Well, it's difficult, isn't it? Because you go into the likes of Russia and we're not that sure. But even in America, a lot of the time, the purses that they're announced afterwards aren't actually officially what they're getting. Like I remember when Broner saying that when Eddie Hearn was trying to woo him over, and he's saying, "Oh, you're only earning $3 million," and Broner's like, "No way, I'm earning way more than that." And then there was a whole fuss over the tax because Heyman was giving them all this extra money. So you never really quite know what they're walking away with. But they'll be well paid in Russia, I would say. Yeah.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like, if you wanted to get me fighting in Russia, I mean, yeah, $1 million would be a lot for me. But that area, apparently, the area is really bad as well. So I imagine they're going to be paid quite handsomely. The national anthems are just being sang. We're just getting the introductions now, so we're literally moments away. We've got Frank in the ring. Anthony Yarde's being announced as well with his entourage in the background. So as we're getting closer to the first ring of the first bell for the first round, Steve, obviously you're going with Sergei Kovalev. If you were to go with Anthony Yarde, how would you see Anthony Yarde winning?
Obviously, people will say that Yarde should come out and rush him, but I'm wondering with Kovalev's gas tank whether he should try and take him late. But then we don't know about Yarde's gas tank either. So,
he's never been past 7, has he?
Well, exactly. Is Yarde good enough to be able to box him and take him late without taking so much punishment, with being able to hammer the body, having the experience? I know I keep going on about experience all the time. But you're talking about a guy who didn't have much of an amateur experience, hasn't fought that gatekeeper real level into world title yet, and he's in against a guy like Kovalev. He's going to be doing all the little tricks, isn't he? He's going to be putting the elbow in. He's going to be dropping these shots and complaining to the referee. Maybe the crowd's going to be on Yarde's back. That experience is invaluable as far as I'm concerned. So Yarde has to deal with all these things as well. Is he good enough to outbox Kovalev? One factor in Kovalev's favour, for me, I'm a big fan of Buddy McGirt. I think he's an excellent coach, so he'll be able to keep Kovalev on point as well. If, which is a big if, Kovalev actually listens to him, which is the problem. But this guy has been around the block, and you can't buy that experience. Yarde could end up, obviously this doesn't happen, like maybe having a cut or something. How does he react to those things? All these variables, these factors might come to play. So for me, Yarde, try and take him late, try and wear him down, try and hammer the body. But if he's able to sustain a pace, we don't know.
The Last King of Scotland in the chat agrees with you. It could be a good idea taking Kovalev late. Again, like you said, I been a bit of a parrot here, but I agree with you. The gas tank is again playing into the unknown. Kovalev's gas tank has been in question. Obviously, he was stopped, late against Andre Ward the second time. Low blows taken into account as well, but he was stopped late against Andre Ward. Again, a different sort of fighter than Anthony Yarde is. And then Anthony Yarde as well. Never been past 7. He's big. He's muscly. He's in a high pressure fight. Will those kind of things kind of pull together to gas him out quicker than he should be? The two fighters now pretty much head to head, getting their instructions from the referee. Again, we're moments away. This is getting excited now. The bell for the first round is about to ring. So Steve, just react to whatever you see whenever you want to come in and say anything, or just watch the fight however you watch it. But yeah, we're about to get the first round. Well excited for this. Going for a Yarde by KO inside 5. Steve Wellings is going for Kovalev by KO inside 5. Is that correct?
I'll say 6, round 6 for
Kovalev. He's changed to 6. He's changed to 6. Kovalev started on the front foot. He's taken the centre of the ring, and he's just feinted with a couple of jabs. And Yarde has thrown a check hook. Are you a little bit ahead of me, Steve?
Yeah, I'm about 1 minute 23 in now.
No worries. If you see anything, just go for it. Not a problem at all. It starts looking a bit tentative, but Kovalev has taken the centre of the ring, and he's very much on the front foot. Yarde is throwing feints here and there, but he's stepping forward as well. I think a bit of a hook just got through, and a jab miss from Kovalev as well. But they're it's not a chess match as such. They're feeling each other out definitely, for my money. But they're both not quite going in it just yet. So I think they're just feeling each other out.
Yeah, from what I'm seeing, Ames, Yarde looks quite confident. He's trying that swiping left hook, and he's landed a right hand as well. So he looks pretty comfortable in there so far.
Okay, that's good. Good to hear. If you're in my camp for Yarde, that he's hopefully settling into this. I see Kovalev just kind of putting the jab out kind of thing, just to see how Yarde responds to Kovalev. But yeah, like I see it, he looks kind of like Yarde from other fights that we've seen, kind of taking a bit of a step back and kind of feeling his opponents around before he'll kind of make his move. So it looks like the Anthony Yarde that we've seen before. Kovalev again, I think, again the same sort of Kovalev, but we'll kind of see that throughout the next coming rounds if it does tend to be the same sort of Kovalev. But again, a couple of punches being thrown, nothing too much. Anthony Yarde's kind of now pushing back a little bit, pushing Kovalev to the ropes, but they then get back to the center of the ring. I'm liking this from Anthony Yarde at the moment.
Yeah. He's working well on the inside. He's landed a couple of short, sharp shots already. What do you make of Kovalev's body shape, Ames, especially in and around the stomach area?
Oh, to me, I don't think he looks as good as he has previously. I think I've seen him a bit more defined and toned from before. But it's weird because he's weighed in a bit more a bit higher than Yarde, hasn't he? But I don't think this is his peak shape for my money. Is that how you see it as well?
I do. I don't want to obviously look for things in and around his shape that are not there, but he has the trunks pulled up quite high. He doesn't look like he's in ripped condition, so that could be a factor later on in the fight if indeed it goes that far.
100%, and that's around that sort of area. That's the body, isn't it? And that's where you would think Anthony Yarde and Tunde have been kind of putting their game plan to put bank if they're going to go long, like the Last King of Scotland and yourself have suggested. They'll be going to the body to put in bank for that work for those later rounds. The first round is just about coming to close. I have just got a little bit of a stutter on the the link, but how do you see the first round? Have you got a winner for the first round?
Thought it was quite close, maybe just narrowly shaded it to Kovalev, but I wouldn't argue the other way. I thought Yarde did some good work, especially in the last 30 seconds or so. So he was shortening up the shots, which is good. And if you can make Kovalev wary about coming in, then that's always the battle. If you have that punch and you have that ability to hurt somebody, they're not as quick to jump in. So I think a lot of Kovalev's best work, off his jab, which he started the second round pretty strong jab.
Yeah, I agree. I'd probably say as well myself that I think Sergey Kovalev probably just took that round. I think from my eyes, I saw Sergey Kovalev land with a couple more jabs and things, and obviously push Yarde a little bit back as well. When it comes to ring generalship and kind of fighting your fight, I think Sergey Kovalev was kind of making the move and making Yarde work a little bit more. So for me, my money, I think Sergey Kovalev took that round, but it was very close. You can never really tell in the first kind of rounds because you only see what you see, and it was quite close to be fair in terms of what I saw. But I'd probably just pip that to Sergey Kovalev. There is a Russian fella in the chat, and I'm just gonna translate what he's saying. I've translated what he's saying in the chat. He's saying that Kovalev now pals on this unfinished Englishman, which is probably a rough translation for Kovalev is going to I imagine knock out this rough around the edges kind of rough diamond maybe. Maybe he's not ready. The Russian fellow kind of thinks of Anthony Yarde.
Well, you know what, Ames? I think he
Go on.
makes a good point there. I made a similar point on our show as well. If you were looking at guys like a Walk Dokwa who was into the Andrade fight, or if you were looking at one of those guys, say like a Maxwell Owuku or Rafael Mensah, and you look at their records and you see 23-0, 19 knockouts, and you go, oh, they've been fighting absolute nobodies. This is the way other guys are viewing Anthony Yarde. I was listening to a few American podcasts, and they're like, this guy's record is completely inflated. So we have to take that into account, that maybe we're looking at it from the eyes of people who've been watching Yarde pretty much from his debut.
Hmm. And speaking of looking at through different eyes, I did try to get a Russian kind of flavor of
Mm.
kind of how they preview the fight. I did find like it looked pretty good in terms of the preview from a Russian YouTuber. Problem was it was all in Russian, so I didn't really know what I was seeing. I tried to see if there was captions as such, but there wasn't. Unfortunately, so I couldn't actually see what kind of their perspective was. I would imagine they're pretty confident in Sergey Kovalev. You would be again. I think people, even if you're not Russian, obviously people aren't Russian. Everyone's not Russian. If you're not Russian, you could still see from in terms of their resume wise, you'd be confident in Sergey Kovalev in terms of him getting the victory. The Russian fellow also says go Russia, so he's pro Russia as well. But in the second round for me, I see. Again, the same sort of thing in the first round. Kovalev again, a bit more on the front foot now. Like as this Russian fella said, piling a bit more pressure. I just saw Anthony Yarde shoot to the body as well. I think it got through from what I saw. How are you seeing the second round, Steve?
Yeah, I gave that one to Kovalev again. Not a great deal in it, but I felt that the jab was working and he was more offensive. Yarde didn't really do as much. He threw a few combinations, but Kovalev was coming forward. So on his aggression, I'd give him the round. But he's putting a lot into it, Kovalev. So this could tell, as I said, maybe later on. But at the moment, Yarde's still holding his own, still doing okay. But I thought Kovalev won that one with slightly more width than the first one.
So it might actually be pretty good because I'm a little bit behind and I get a little bit maybe about a minute more from behind you. And as you're saying it, I can kind of see maybe from the last minute of what you're saying. I completely agree as well. Kovalev for me, he's kind of putting it on, and we'll. I probably now will change. Well, no, I can't change, but it's probably not ending as the kind of inside five knockout that I thought it'd be. Do you still hold on to your inside six from the first two rounds? Your prediction, Steve?
I do because I don't want to change my mind, but at the moment it's not looking great, is it?
No, it's not. It's not kind of ignited. I thought it would be one of those kind of fights that would ignite, and this obviously plays into Sergey Kovalev. His hands. He's winning the round, so both our eyes. So if Yarde's going to end it late, he's going to have to end it early. He's going to have to make a bit of a move pretty soon, unless it is the plan to go late. Maybe reserve some of that energy. Obviously, he's big and he's never gone around 7. So they might need to hold that kind of gas tank for the later rounds. And if they're trying to knock him out, then it might have to be a late play to get Sergey Kovalev out of there. Just
Well,
seeing.
Yarde's come out in the third round a bit more offensively, throwing the
Okay.
jab, looking a bit more aggressive. So I'm wondering whether Tundi's told him to take it up a level, in between rounds 2 and 3.
Are you getting any of the corner cam or corner audio all in between the rounds? Because I'm
No,
not on
I
this.
have it I have it muted so that we
Okay.
can sort of continue talking. So I'm not sure what they're saying. Maybe the guys at home will be able to say. But I do have one confirmation for you. In fact, the Eurasian Boxing Parliament title is in fact on the line, according to a few of the guys on Twitter.
Big belts on the line here.
Yeah.
Big belts in Chelyabinsk. I'm seeing the exact same thing as well. I see Yarde with a 1-2 and then following up with another jab. He's then feinting a little bit to throw. But yeah, he's on the front foot. He's watching Kovalev and he's just patting a little bit with a couple of jabs, and then he does connect with a shot. I think it's kind of like a little bit of a curved jab. But it only Kovalev was a little bit off balance. It wasn't anything that hurt him. Kovalev with a jab and then a jab to the body from Anthony Yarde. Yarde misses with with a jab and then a left hook. Yarde kind of doing his kind of shoulder roll, kind of ducking to evade the shots from Sergey Kovalev. The posturing in the middle as Sergey Kovalev hits the body. Sergey Kovalev still in the center of the ring. He's trying to push Yarde back. Yarde makes his way back to the center of the ring. And it's still a little bit of a chess match after the first part of the third round was Yarde on the front foot. They've now kind of settled. It's a slower rhythm. This is, I think, which if it's looking to play late, it kind of doesn't really help either of them. It helps kind of both of them. Sorry, it doesn't really play into either of their hands. I think for me. But again, there's the old adage that you have to rip the belts from the champion, and at the moment, for my money, Yarde isn't doing that, and he's lost the first 2 rounds, and is probably on his way to losing this round as well.
Both men seem to be breathing a little bit heavy. I'm not sure if it's my stream or not, but Yarde seems like he has a bit of puffiness and wear in and around the left eye. Again, the guys can maybe confirm this. I've just seen Kovalev on the replay landing a solid left jab to that left eye, so that would probably confirm that. I thought Yarde did okay, a few swiping left hooks, but again, narrow margins, but he's maybe just not doing enough, and Kovalev's jab and ability to judge the distance is probably what's working for him. If Kovalev leans in, I can see Yarde having success, but Kovalev, he's not leaning in. He's not leaving himself open on the inside. He's jabbing away, throwing the shots, and then pulling out of range again. So he's giving Yarde plenty of stylistic problems to deal with here.
The Last King of Scotland says Kovalev is using his experience to nick these rounds, and then following up by saying, if Yarde gets more aggressive, Kovalev is there for the taking. Do you see Kovalev being there for the taking at the moment?
Well, one thing I will say, I thought towards the end, the last 30 seconds or so, Kovalev looked like he was throwing pushing his punches a little bit. So I'm wondering whether the gas tank could be an issue and maybe take a toll on him. I'm not convinced by Kovalev's conditioning whatsoever, Ames.
I've just gone down, unfortunately, so I'm going to have to find a different source, shall we say, for this one. But yeah, again, I didn't quite see if Sergey Kovalev was kind of pushing with those jabs, and maybe if they are tiring a little bit. That would be a bit of a surprise for me if we're only 3 rounds in and Kovalev being gassed already.
I could be looking into things. Hopefully, you'll be able to get the stream back up again soon. I know you are doing a great job over there, getting it on in Greece, cutting into your holidays for the big fights.
No, I wanted to. I didn't want to miss this. Like I said, it got me hyped. So yeah, I wouldn't miss it for the world. So I brought my stuff over, and I want to see the lions in the camp, as they say.
Currently, I'm about 1 minute 40 into round 4.
Sure.
Kovalev's come out. He's throwing the jab, and he's also trying to bring the right hand in behind it a lot more. Yarde, he's having his success. He's having his patches. He looks good when he's aggressive, but I'm wondering whether both of them are maybe blown a little bit. And if Kovalev can get that old spear jab to the stomach going, then you could maybe see Yarde's gas tank emptying. But at the moment, nobody's been visibly hurt. Nobody looks like they're in any major trouble. But Yarde does seem to be retreating to the ropes a little bit more midway through this 4th round than he has done in the past. So he might want to get himself back into centre ring, which he does, and lands a left hook, as I mentioned. So that's probably best for Yarde to get himself into that centre ring and don't allow himself to be pushed against the ropes, because I think that'll be a bad strategy for him. The Kovalev jab aims working really lovely at the moment. Up, down, up, down.
Right, I believe I'm back in now, and I am in the 4th round with about I can't quite see. I think I can see 56 seconds there. I did read someone say that he rocked him. I don't know who got rocked there. Have you seen anything for your eyes that kind of looked like it connected on either of them?
Not particularly. Didn't
No.
see anybody
Okay.
rocked. No,
No.
no.
Yeah. So again, I see currently Sergey Kovalev pushing Anthony Yarde to the back to the ropes again, and just kind of stepping forward with a jab, peppering a couple of shots that deliberately aren't looking to hit him, and then kind of pushing out with a jab again. Again, just trying to. I think he's trying to make Yarde make a move and then catch him with a punch. For my eyes, that's why I kind of see Yarde. Kovalev hits a 5-punch combination, but about 2 of them land, and not hard at all. Kovalev tries for a hook, which misses. Yarde ducks out of the way. Yarde comes through with I believe it was a hook. I think it was blocked, and Kovalev retaliates with a jab to the body, which is again blocked from Yarde.
Yeah, Kovalev's working the feints really lovely, isn't he? He's throwing them in, passing the feint, and then whenever Yarde leads off, he's throwing the counter. That's again an experienced move. Just saw Costa's you there,
All
former
right.
light welterweight champion. I was a big fan of Kostya back in the day. Really big punching Russian, based in Australia. Great fighter. He's obviously there trying to take his son Tim Sue out to Russia at some point. He's a chip off the old block if you get a chance to watch him.
I've read a little bit about Tim Tszyu. They're trying to bring him over, or they've brought him over, have they, to America? That's what I'd read. I don't know if I'm completely wrong there and about a different fighter.
Kostya wants him to fight in Russia, I believe.
Right.
Kostya wanted to fight in Russia himself all those years, but I don't think he ever got the chance. But
Okay.
I'm just watching the rematch, actually, the replay, sorry, and Kovalev did land a nice left hook, which sort of knocked Yarde off balance. Maybe that's what a contributor in the chat was referring to.
Yeah, there was a bit of an exchange. It looked like a couple of shots got in from both of them. Wasn't able to quite see cleanly what it was, but might now be heating up a little bit as both fighters kind of maybe have felt each other out, know what can kind of land, and kind of make their plays a little bit to kind of take the fight. But for me, again, now as that round ends, I think Sergey Kovalev has won every round so far. But we've seen Sergey Kovalev win every round against Elida Alvarez and then get caught late. So by no means is Yarde out of this fight. There's a lot of time if points is on their game plan to kind of bring this back on the scorecard, and then there's a lot of time to find a punch as well to knock out Sergey Kovalev if that's the plan as well.
Yeah, what's making Kovalev work, but at the same time, he's not doing enough himself to win the rounds. So it's a good strategy if he is looking to take it late, but he needs to start getting points on the board, I think.
They're just showing a replay of a jab coming through from Anthony Yarde, which is good. I see a hook tried from Anthony Yarde, which gets caught in the gloves from Sergey Kovalev. Kovalev tries a jab to push back Anthony Yarde to the back of the ropes. Anthony Yarde replies with a couple of jabs of his own and hits a 1-2. I believe the 2 landed on Kovalev partially, and then he shoots to the body as well. Kovalev takes one to the Yarde. Sorry, Kovalev catches Yarde with a jab, then Yarde catches Kovalev with a hook. Neither men are too affected by either shot, but then Kovalev shoots at the body as well as they clinch. They then separate. Well, the ref tells them to separate. They're back in the center of the ring as well, spicing up a little bit here in the 5th round. No knockdowns as such. It's been pretty much straightforward, with Kovalev winning the rounds for both of our eyes as they clinch in the center, and Kovalev pushes Yarde to the ropes. What do you think? If you were in the corner, what would you be telling Anthony Yarde to do for the coming round, Steve?
I'd be trying to get him to close the distance as best he can. Try and close the distance between Kovalev's left jab, but it's easier said than done. Kovalev is absolutely bashing that in his face. And Yarde, he needs to try and rough in on the inside and try and work the body, but I don't see him being able to pull off that
Good
strategy
shot
at the
there
moment.
from Kovalev.
Yeah, he's not going to win the boxing match, is he, Yarde? So he's going to have to try something a little bit different. He's standing off, which isn't serving him at all.
No, you're completely correct. And this is probably where people are kind of saying the class is kind of coming in. Those couple of shots that I saw Yarde take then were pretty classy. They didn't quite rock Yarde in any sort of way, but he can't be shipping too many of those. The guy has never had any marks or any kind of blood or cuts or anything, this might be the fight where he gets that. Is because he's looking
This
now getting
is better,
peppered.
aim. Better. That's better from Yarde. Sorry
All
to
right,
interrupt you.
no
Right at the
worries,
end of
that's
the
fine.
fifth round there.
Please do,
That's
please
much
do.
better. Yeah.
That's something for me to look out for, because at the moment I'm seeing it as Kovalev now peppering him. So I'm waiting for this kind of element of Yarde coming back. So I'll probably see that towards the end of this round. I think probably even if Yarde comes up with something big, like yeah, I just saw the shot come through there. Again, Kovalev takes that round as well. He's probably going to need to take another good shot there as well. Need to take these few more risks, like I said, and get closer in on anti-Yarde, on Sergei Kovalev, sorry, to kind of have more effect, because, like I said, he's not going to be able to box him. That's proven. He's I don't think he's getting outclassed in any sort of sense,
No.
but he might start getting outclassed as the fight kind of progresses, because I'm just seeing these shots kind of leak through. Again, is that how you saw the fifth round again going to Kovalev?
I did indeed. Apparently, Buddy McGirt's telling Kovalev to go to the body a bit more, so they're obviously trying to wear Yarde down. As Yarde gets tired and more desperate, then that's when Kovalev, you can see him starting to pick the shots off. It's not going well for Yarde from what I'm seeing at the moment. He's not being outclassed. He's not being beaten up as such, but he's just not doing enough to win the rounds for my liking.
Sure, 100% agreed. I did just see one of the final punches of that fifth round looked like it kind of gave Kovalev a bit of a glazy kind of look.
It did.
Yeah. I'm glad you picked up on that as well. I thought maybe I was kind of reading a bit too much into that. So that's the kind of thing that I, coming into the fight, I was picking up upon, in that he can catch him with his shots, and if he does, hopefully he can capitalize upon them. But again, Kovalev is the accomplished boxer. He'll be able to pepper Yarde with those shots and maybe put him off of that. He's going to have to keep taking more risks. Yarde in the corner looks pretty happy, pretty confident, but I'm sure they must be telling him to kind of step on the gas a bit and maybe ship a couple of shots to land a couple of shots yourself, and hopefully the power will tell. The belt.
Yarde's gum shields come out here. A couple of quick observations.
Sure.
Kovalev did look a little bit off balance, which he does tend to do. If you remember the fights against Cedric Agnew and Blake Caparello, he got knocked down because sometimes he does seem to tangle his feet a little bit. So that was maybe the off balance look came from that.
Oh right, okay. So I might be reading into it too much. Maybe it's my. So I'm wrong in terms of my prediction of Yarde inside 5. Steve, for me, could be right with a knockout in the 6th round. Steve's obviously a little bit ahead, but we'll see if that comes to fruition. Yeah, I'm seeing it the exact same way with Kovalev peppering a couple of shots, a couple of jabs getting through quite a few times now from Kovalev on Yarde. I'm going to be interested to see what Yarde looks like after this fight, especially around the face, because he's not going to come out unscathed at all. Yarde has been backed up the ropes by Kovalev, a couple of jabs. They're partially blocked, sorry, and I'm caught up with the gum shield moment where the gum shield has come out from anti-Yarde. So
what about Yarde's corner? Ames' Tundi's reputation's on the line a little bit as well, isn't it? Master genius.
But no one buys into that. So, like, is there really a reputation on the line? Yeah, I mean, I suppose he stands to win more than he loses, because people will call him the fool, which they all thought he was if he loses. But if he wins, if Yarde wins, he stands to win more, doesn't he? So
that's true. Yeah.
I suppose the people just, it's Tunde's Tunde kind of thing coming out if Yarde does end up losing this one. But yeah, he stands more to gain than he does lose. A couple of shots coming in from Kovalev on Yarde again, shipping these shots now. Not too frequently. It's nothing too effective as yet, but they're scoring punches definitely, and they're stopping Yarde from getting his offense in as we're coming in towards the end of the 6th round. Steve, as you're ahead of me, did your prediction come to fruition?
My prediction has not come to fruition, but I am increasingly concerned about Kovalev's gas tank at the moment. He does look like he is blowing to me now.
Okay. So Last King of Scotland saying Yarde needs to keep up his left hand. He's getting smashed with right hands. Last King of Scotland again picking up on what we're both seeing as well, with Yarde shipping a couple of shots. Good couple of the left hand. A body shot gets through. It looked borderline from Yarde there.
I thought that was a good shot from Yarde, actually.
Yeah, it looked pretty good. More of those, I think. He managed to close the distance there, and that meant he was able to get that body shot through. But more of those, I think we need to see for Yarde to now um, kind of mount his offense and hopefully come through this fight with the win. If you're new here, click subscribe to the channel and like. Helps me out loads. Twitter is Take Aims and Instagram is Take Aims. Joined here by Steve Wellings, host of the Nuthouse podcast from the Boxing Asylum at the Boxing Asylum, and his Twitter is Stephen Wellings. Listen to the podcast on Sundays live at 8 p.m. on Mixler, the new home of the podcast, and join the chat as well. You don't need to sign up to listen to the podcast, but if you want to interact with the chat, I believe you have to sign up. Is that correct? But
That is, yeah, that's correct. Mixler.com/Boxing Asylum. They kicked us off Hangouts, unfortunately. We had a nice home there, but we've had to move. So we are looking at places like StreamYard and that to try and get back on YouTube. But maybe one day we will live.
whatever keeps the podcast going. Again,
Mhm.
listen to the podcast. You listen to it once and you'll be listening to it every week. So, and it's a good bunch of lads. I love the dynamic between you guys, which is why I'm pretty much listening every week. So, yeah. So subscribe to the Boxing Asylum and follow Stephen Wellings on Twitter as well. So again, just to recap, it's Sergey Kovalev winning all the rounds. I think on both of our cards, if we were scoring this, Yarde has got to step up the gas if he wants to knock out Sergey Kovalev. It's not looking like that's coming really, unless there's going to be some shot out of nowhere for my eyes as the 7th round starts. But if it's going to be late, then it's looking that way because we're now 7 rounds in as they square up in the centre of the ring and Yarde is on the front foot. He's feinting and catches Kovalev with a left, which I think was blocked. He shoots another left, which Kovalev ducks. He read that quite well. Kovalev pushes the jab out as Yarde feints with a jab and just touches Kovalev. I think a jab landed through from Kovalev as well as they clinch at the centre of the ring, and Kovalev pushes Yarde to the back of the ropes.
Kovalev aims. He hasn't hit Yarde with anything flush, which is to
No,
Yarde's credit. But also, Yarde hasn't had anything really to build his confidence. He hasn't
no.
hurt Kovalev or damaged him with the right hand. The left hook is working quite well, but he hasn't done anything to really give him that boost of confidence. But he is going for it here in the 7th, as he has to do.
Good. I saw the clinch and Yarde threw a couple of body shots in the clinch. I think the jabs are putting off Anthony Yarde. They're stopping him from doing what he wants to do, and it's just kind of I don't see, at least in this round, him building off the jab either. He's kind of going in with the hooks as such to kind of set up his kind of offense is how I'm seeing it.
Yarde
Go
doing
on.
okay in this 7th round. The left hook to the body is working well, and Kovalev wanted to clinch after one there. I think Yarde might be winning this round so far in the 7th.
Okay. Hopefully I see that on my end. A couple of hooks missed, and then the right goes through from Yarde as Sergey Kovalev shoots off a combination, but I believe it missed. Yarde stepping on the front foot and backing Kovalev up with a jab, pitter-patter jab, a 1-2, which is blocked from Kovalev. He feints a shot, which Kovalev buys, and he pushes him towards the ropes. Couple of shots to the body, yep, that I saw there. Another right hook to the body, which lands from Yarde to Kovalev as Kovalev responds back. Another left hook, doubles up with that left hook, which lands as well. Lions in the camp in Russia as Anthony Yarde pushes forward in the 7th round to try and mount an offense on Kovalev. Another left hook comes through as well, and another one as Kovalev clinches. They clinch and they're separated by the ref.
Yeah, the left hand was working well for Yarde. See Roy Jones in the crowd as well, one of the greats of
He rapped,
boxing.
didn't he? He rapped at the.
Yep.
I don't know if you caught it. He rapped his rendition of "Can't Be Touched," which is probably the most overused, but probably one of the best as well. Kind of boxing, kind of intro, ring walks and songs. I only found out recently. This is how much of a casual I am. That Roy Jones actually rapped that. I thought it was someone else, and then I realised it was actually Roy Jones Jr., which is a credit to him, both a master boxer and a bit of a rapper as well.
Yeah, he used to rap himself into the ring. Quite a few, a history of boxers and the old singing. I think Oscar De La Hoya brought out an album once of love ballads. You could go and look that up.
Yeah, a few of them have a good shot there from Anthony Yarde as the bell rings. I think Kovalev got one through as well. Yeah, there's a history of boxers and singers. Joe Frazier fancies himself as a bit of a singer, and obviously Ali fancies himself as a singer as well as an actor on Broadway and movies. Yeah, there's a few others. I think Danny Garcia as well has got a couple of rap songs which, for my liking, aren't too good as well. But yeah, they do tend to dip into different kind of areas. Did you give that round to Anthony Yarde?
I gave it to Yarde. I think the left hook's working to the head and particularly the body. And I've noticed Kovalev as well early in this 8th round, similar to the 7th round. He wants to look to hold a little bit more. So this could be a slight change in Yarde's favour, perhaps.
I hope that's something that they've picked up in the corner. I can see Tunde wagging his finger and coming up close into Yarde. I hope he's given that instruction to maybe now say, this is where we can kind of dictate here. Maybe win some rounds as well. It might be a little bit too late, or it might be getting too late soon, but I hope that's something they picked up on. Yarde can then kind of have that instruction and then obviously make effect to that instruction. Yarde comes out and jabs to the body. Kovalev moves out the way. Kovalev does a double jab, which is blocked, but it's putting off Anthony Yarde. Yarde comes in with a left hook. I believe one landed. Yarde takes a 1-2, which kind of partially blocked. A right comes in, which Yarde takes on the chin as they're separated and they're in the centre of the ring. Another body shot lands from Yarde on Kovalev as Kovalev pushes Yarde, and the ref comes in to stop that and tells Kovalev to stop pushing. Kovalev on the back foot here. Yarde is pushing him. It's not kind of really an effective aggression, but it's Kovalev on the back foot, which obviously Yarde will want to then build off of. Yarde throws another left hook there to the body, and the right leads with the right, misses again with the right. Kovalev shoots a 1-2, then ducks out of the way, then ties up Yarde to the...
Kovalev doesn't look great to me here, you know.
Yeah, I agree with you. I've just seen that myself there. He looks tired.
Oh, here we go.
Oh.
Yeah, he's in bad condition.
Okay. Yeah, he looks tired. It looks like this has taken a bit of a toll for him. I hope Anthony Yarde has picked up on this. Nothing's happened just yet, but I hope that's what he's seen, and he's going to take a few more risks. I'm not saying he's boxing risk averse, but I think he needs to do a bit more. Did I just see Kovalev throw out his gum shield? Is that something I saw, or am I seeing something else? Something came out of Kovalev's mouth, I think, or I might have just seen something.
I missed it, but Kovalev's knackered right now.
Yeah, I see it as well. He takes 1-2 there. It was a really good shot from Yarde on Kovalev. Kovalev jabs out, puts out the jab. I think he's trying to bide his time and get kind of a second wind. But I'm completely seeing the same sort of thing. I'm seeing Sergei Kovalev. His punch output is dropping. Good jab there. Yarde's coming forward. He clinches now, does Sergei Kovalev, to push Yarde to the back of the ropes. This is obvious now, I think, that Kovalev is gassing a little bit here. I think he needs to pick up on it. A great shot there. A right hand. I think it was wobbled Kovalev a bit. Kovalev is looking a little bit ropey. A left hook. He pushes Kovalev to the ropes and he unleashes the barrels of punches. Right hand, a right hook, left hook. Anthony Yarde looks like some... as he clinches. Sergei Kovalev with the old man move. He clinches to stop that barrage of punches. An uppercut, I think, misses. Yarde looks like he's about to... Kovalev looks like he's about to go down. This is a moment here. Yarde with a right hook.
Ames Kovalev's been putting the rounds in the bank, but he hasn't done enough damage on Yarde.
No, not at all. And Kovalev looks in a state. This is a big round. A big round. If he can push out the knockdown, that's going to be great for him. But it's a big round nonetheless to take a lot of motivation for in the coming rounds. He does ship a left jab, I think it was, right at the end. But that's a really big round for Anthony Yarde. The first clear round for me that Anthony Yarde has won. I'd probably give him another round as well. What was your take of that round?
I think Yarde had him in all sorts of trouble. I think Kovalev's done. I don't think he's going to survive. He looks soft. He obviously hasn't been training properly. I think his time as a top-level fighter is hanging by a thread right now.
Oh, all right. Steve with a big call here. As I see Yarde getting instructions in the corner, Steve is calling for the doom and gloom of Sergei Kovalev. It looks that way. It really does. That's a great shot. A great hook there. We're getting the replay now. Fantastic hook from Anthony Yarde. Anthony Yarde shown for me that he can mix it up after he's taken a bit of time to build himself. And we're in round 9. There's lots of time here to go for Anthony Yarde to build up upon this, get a few shots on. But he's shown now he can against a really good fighter. Now he's got to step on it more and take a lot of confidence from that. Hope he's getting the instruction and he's going to put it on Kovalev hopefully in this 9th round. Sorry. As they clinch, I think Kovalev is clinching because he wants that time to clear his head. Yarde on the front foot trying to push Kovalev back. They're in the centre of the ring. Kovalev with 3 jabs. They all miss. Kovalev speaking to the ref about something. Don't know what it was about. Kovalev looks really tired. 1, 2, 3, 4 punch combination, but there's nothing really in it at all. Yarde is blocking some of these shots really well on the arms. He takes one there, but Yarde just keeps coming forward. Another jab to the body. Yarde looking really impressive.
I believe
Cracking
Buddy
right hook.
McGirt said in between rounds that Kovalev needs to shape his act up, otherwise he's stopping it.
Oh wow, that's massive. That is massive. If Do you think that's a bit of the Dadashev thing? I don't want to bring it in too much to be a little bit distasteful, but he's just seen one of his fighters lose his life. Do you think there's something in that?
There might be. I never even considered that. I thought it might be
Yep.
psychological. I wonder if Yarde put a lot into that last round because he's took his foot off the gas and he's
Yep.
allowed Kovalev to pick and poke his way through this round.
Yep. He's not been as effective. A couple of shots have gone through from what I've seen. But yeah, he's just been clinching. Yarde hasn't been working in that clinch as he did a couple of times before. So I think Sergey Kovalev has been able to get a bit of his head a little bit more clearer. Hopefully the chance hasn't gone for Yarde, but he looked really good in the last round. Still does look pretty good in this round. He does look a bit tired as well. He's holding his hands down low, does Anthony Yarde. But this is a really might be a little bit premature, but at least for that round, a little bit of a coming of age round for the last round. Sorry, for Anthony Yarde, as they're both in the ring. Yarde ships a straight jab and a 1-2. The jab gets through. Doesn't hurt too much. Kovalev feints. Yarde staying on the outside. Comes in with a leaping left hook, which doesn't connect. A couple of shots get through. I think they're both a little bit tired here. Another shot then, again from Kovalev. The crowd kind of roar from what I can hear, for Kovalev. Another clinch as well. Kovalev, I think, doing the right things here to see through this round, which is probably what him and his corner wanted. Just need the same. We need an echo of that last round, where it looked like Yarde was gonna get Kovalev out of the ring, just wasn't able to do so, which might say a little bit about the power from Anthony Yarde, or the chin of Sergey Kovalev in itself as well. Are you through with that round, Steve? How did you see it?
I am. I think I'm just watching the replay here. I think the experience of Kovalev, as we mentioned at the beginning of the fight, was coming through there. The lead right hand, the left hook, both caught Yarde square on. So I think that Kovalev got his wits about him again. But I know this is a bold claim, but I'm going to say, regardless of the outcome here, I think Kovalev's pretty much toast as a top-level fighter. I just don't think he can whip himself into the type of shape needed, the type of shape required to hang at the top level. I think he's going down the pecking order at light heavyweight, and his Canelo fight might be slipping him by if he doesn't book his ideas up here.
Is that because too much wear and tear, or he's out of the ring antics, or both?
I maybe both, but I think particularly he's out of the ring antics. I just don't think he's in shape. We said at the beginning, didn't we? I pointed to his body in the first round. He just doesn't look like someone's living a life. I don't think his heart's in it completely anymore. And if he can get through this fight, then full respect to him. But I just don't think it's there for Kovalev anymore. He's the bully mentality, wasn't it? Whenever he was knocking people out early on, they were all scared of him. But if you stand up to the bully, then they fall down. Even though I have problems with the Andre Ward fight, I'm not going to obviously get bogged down in that now. If you stand up to the bully, as Ward did at the end of that fight, then all of a sudden their world comes crashing down, and I think we've definitely seen the best of Sergey Kovalev.
Was that another Anthony Yarde round for you?
The ninth. No, I thought Kovalev won the ninth, to be honest.
Sure, fair enough.
What did you think?
I think I gave that to Yarde for me.
Fair enough.
So Yarde comes in, let's say square up for the 10th round. Neither of them, they're both just kind of fainting, neither of them engaging just yet. Kovalev throws a jab, which is just blocked. It's a jab for no effect. A great jab there. The sweat flies off of Anthony Yarde's head. Doesn't hurt him too much, but it's a good jab to stop him. Kovalev throws a flurry. Most of those looked like they were blocked. A left hook lands on Kovalev, but it didn't do too much damage either. Yeah, I think the Chelyabinsk air is not too helpful, and these guys look quite heavy-legged.
It's 12:30 there as well, isn't it?
Really? Fucking hell.
Yeah.
It's a late fight for them as well.
Typical Frank Warren card.
Yeah.
Can't help it, no matter where he goes in the world.
Not at all. See, both tired for my eyes, and neither of them throwing too much at each other. It's just kind of the pity-patty jabs. Kind of, it's you feel I feel like it's leading up to something. Hopefully, anyway. Yard might just be catching his own breath as well to land an onslaught. That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah,
It's gonna have
that's
to
what I
come
think's
soon.
happening. I agree. Yeah, I agree with that.
It's 11th and 12th round, so that 12th round, Kovalev, I imagine, will probably run. He's actually getting caught with a couple of shots here. It is Yard from Kovalev. So I think if he's going to have to put something on, it has to be either this round or the 11th.
Yard's looking really tired, Aim. Sorry
Yeah.
to interrupt you. Yard's looking really tired at the end of this 10th round now.
Sure. I see Kovalev landing a couple of shots here.
Kovalev's really laying it on him. Yard's in the corner. He's taking shots. Something's flown off. Oh no, he stopped it.
What?
The referee stopped it. Yard's been stopped in the 10th round.
So Steve a little bit ahead of us is saying Yard's been stopped in the 10th round. I'm seeing that coming through now. I see a jab coming through from Sergei Kovalev on Anthony Yarde. 1-2 as I think Yard got wobbled there.
Is it the end? Oh no, sorry boys. Sorry. Getting carried away here.
Oh.
The bell's gone for the end of the round.
Oh right. Well, I saw a shot there.
The referee seems to jump in.
I saw a shot there go through from Kovalev on Anthony Yarde, and it looked like it wobbled him. I think I saw Anthony Yarde get wobbled for the first time in his career, but he's coming through it. Another jab comes through. Yarde looks really tired, as Steve was saying, and I can see it on my video as well. Yarde coming back forward, left hook doesn't land. Another shot, I think he was just off balance there. Kind of looks like he's staggered. Yarde looks really tired. Yeah, I've seen it now. 1, 2, 3, 4 punch combination, ending with the jab lands as Yarde takes on the back, sits on the ropes, tries to lead with a hook but doesn't land. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 punch combination. A bit of tape. It's a bit of tape.
It looks like the tail coming in or something.
Yeah. And then obviously the ref kind of steps in front.
Sorry. Yeah.
No worries. It's a little bit.
The ref sort of came in as if he.
Yeah.
I thought it was premature. I was like, no, he stopped it, but he hadn't.
No worries, not a problem. The last King of Scotland saying it's over for Yarde. I think he's seen that round as well, and he's now going for Kovalev. Yeah, that was a really bad round. I'm hoping the 11th round is going to be the telling round for Anthony Yarde. It's got to be, because that 12th is going to be a really tricky round to do anything for my eyes.
Its eye is in a bad state as well, Ames.
Oh, is it? How swole is it?
It's starting to close. Yeah.
That's really bad news for Anthony Yarde. Not great if you're coming into the 11th and 12th round. These are championship rounds. These are championship rounds. These are going to tell if Anthony Yarde has got it in him. He's in against a really tough opponent, but he's done really well, at least in one round. Looked like he had Kovalev going out, but Kovalev has managed to kind of, with his experience, come back. They're getting to the centre of the ring, and nothing too much. Kovalev lands a 1-2. Yarde's on the front foot, but he's looking a lot more tired than he did when he was on the front foot before. He hits a combination to the body. Sergei Kovalev is on the ropes, but he's just jabbing off of the ropes and off of the back foot as they clinch. A couple of shots going through. A barrage of punches. None really land, but Kovalev lands with a right. They're clinching on the ropes.
Kovalev must think that Yarde's done because he's going for him. I think Kovalev might be better off just boxing off the jab here, but he's fairly going for it.
Yarde's down, but it's ruled a slip. I didn't quite see it myself. If you're new here, subscribe to the channel, click like.
Well, Yarde's been knocked down with the right hand. He looks really tired and he's flat on his back. 1 minute to go in the 11th.
Is he getting up?
He's Kovalev celebrating. Can't see, but it's as if they're all jumping in the ring now.
Oh.
I want to tentatively say it's over.
Oh shit!
It was a left hand bang on the chin. Yarde's down. It looks like it's heavy.
Oh god!
It's over.
A couple of shots to the body. I see Sergei Kovalev coming on. A couple of more jabs as well.
It's well over, Ames. It's finished. He's on his stool. Yarde is in a bad way.
It's not for me. The dream's still here for me, Steve. I'm still living it. Come on. I'm wanting the rock. I want the rock pose. A couple of shots in from Kovalev. Yarde takes a really deep breath. Another jab. Come on.
It was a tired man taking a shot at the end.
I'm in an alternative reality. What Steve's saying is hasn't happened just yet. A jab. Yeah, Yarde looks really tired. 1-2 down the pipe. Yeah. Left hook. Yeah, he's down. He's down. I think it looks more like tiredness than being out. From the first view, Kovalev's put his hands up. What Steve said, being from the future like he is, has come to fruition. And we're getting a replay straight away, so it doesn't quite follow live quickly, but yeah, it's like a jab. It's like a jab, but for me, from first viewing, it looks like obviously the jab hurt and knocked him down, but maybe it's tiredness, but his eyes were closed as well. So Yarde's on his seat. It's well and truly over. Instant reaction, Steve.
Instant reaction. Yard didn't disgrace himself at all. I think he did enough for them to say that he's competitive at world level. I think the likes of Frank, Tundi, Spencer Fearon will call this out as a victory of sorts, a moral victory, especially given the 8th round. But for me, I think it was Kovalev's deficiencies that maybe kept Yarde in the fight. I don't want to disparage Yarde whatsoever, but I think the Kovalev of the Nathan Cleverly fight would have gone out there and
Yeah,
probably ruthlessly done
that
him in
was
about 6 rounds. It's the fact
yeah.
that he hadn't trained. He is an old drunk, as people say, and I believe he's finished at the top level. That's what kept Yarde in the fight. Yarde can come again. He can definitely fight at a decent level, but he wasn't at the races tonight. He wasn't at world level in my eyes.
Yeah, I mean, that was it round 7 or 8 where he had his moment? Was it 7 or 8?
8, I think it
8.
was.
Yeah, that showed a lot for me. Yeah, you could probably say in the rounds that obviously there were, what was it, 11, that in one round maybe he got offense, but against Sergei Kovalev, looking like he could have nearly had him out. That's a pretty big statement in my eyes. Again, I agree with you, he hasn't disgraced himself. It hasn't come to fruition though. It's a tough ask against a depreciating fighter, 100%, but still a very good one. One that was able to use his experience to come through what was a really troubling round for him, and build back up, and then a couple of rounds later, knockout Anthony Yarde. I think probably, tiredness had a lot to do with it, as much as probably the punch did as well. I need to see it again. But great.
Like a jab sort of turned
Yeah,
into a left
but
hook. I think it was Yard was tired. It was a tired man taking a flush shot.
but he's done it before, hasn't he? That sort of jab where he's knocked people down. Can't remember the fight he did it in, but I've seen it before where he's thrown a jab like that and it's just knocked opponents down. So, but yeah, I think it's a mixture of the two things. Yarde isn't that kind of Travis Reeves level. I think he's proved that for me. He's probably not elite level either. The doom that Steve predicted for Kovalev, maybe not quite there yet. But if he's in with probably a higher opponent, he might be able to get him out there. Let's say the Canelos or the Bivors. Me as well. I didn't get it right either. I went for Yarde by KO, and that hasn't come out. Sergei Kovalev has knocked out Anthony Yarde in I think it was the 11th round. Good fight. It built up. A couple of the rounds were a little bit kind of boring and such, but built up to a great finish. Where do you see Yarde going from here?
I think they can definitely do things with him. A lot of people will have watched this on BT Sport. Frank will be able to bring him home, build him back up again.
Mm-hmm.
He took. I wouldn't say he took a massive beating, but I think he took a schooling at times. And I just hope. And towards the end, he really was. He emptied his gas tank in the 8th round Yarde, as it turns out. And a couple of things, as we said, came to pass. Especially Kovalev's experience. He was able to ride out the storm in the 8th against a fitter, more technically nuanced guy. I think Kovalev would have been in a world of trouble, say against a Bivol or something. But Yarde's inexperience and his conditioning didn't really help him in the end, and that's why Kovalev was able to come back in the fight, in my opinion. So as for Yarde, he can definitely mix at domestic level, European level. They'll be able to build him back up again. I don't think he's disgraced himself in defeat, but if you imagine what Cleverly version of Kovalev, imagine if they put him in against the Yarde, I don't think he would have lasted 4 or 5 rounds. I think it was Kovalev's deficiencies, as I said earlier, that was maybe kept Yarde in it for as long as he did.
And just to follow up on a question you asked, what do you now think of Tunde?
Well, Tundi will probably come out and say that the 8th round showed the mole victory and, we all got paid, we all got experience, those type of things. I'm not sold on Tundi at the moment. I remember him back in the day being Kevin Mitchell's trainer. The proof's in the pudding, isn't it? Great trainers stay around for a long time. They get good fighters. They build up good fighters. Look at the guy in the opposite corner, Buddy McGirt. Been there as a fighter, been there as a coach. He's earned his stripes. Tundi could well turn out to be an excellent trainer. Let's see where he goes now with Yarde. Let's see who else he trains. The jury's out on Tundi as far as I'm concerned. I can't really take too much from that, but a few of the guys saying maybe he showed his inexperience there tonight. and they banked on Kovalev being old and maybe not so fit, and to a certain extent, I think they got that right. But it would have been borderline dangerous putting them in against a prime version of Kovalev.
Yeah, I remember when I think that was one of the first fights I saw Kovalev in against Cleverly, and I watched it back the other day, and yeah, he was just an absolute killer. I described him as he was just on Kovalev, on Cleverly, um, savage shots, body shots. He just proper peppered him, and yeah, it was all over him. That again, like you said, that sort of Kovalev, I think Antijar probably wouldn't be able to hang, and that leads into again your point about Kovalev depreciating. I'm not so sure. I'd probably give him still a bit more of a chance at world level. You are probably right in terms of his cardio, like what he's doing outside of the ring and such. It's definitely not helping him 100%. And if you're someone like Kovalev, you probably see yourself as having to should be able to beat people like Anthony Yarde with his in terms of looking just at him as his resume. But I think Kovalev has shown there that he's able to come through against a young guy, a strong guy as well in Anthony Yarde. I think he showed that uses experience and eventually get the knockout. So for me, I still think he can mix it, but I mean that's just my eyes.
No, I think Kovalev can definitely mix it at the world level. I don't doubt that whatsoever.
Yeah.
But I just look at him and I don't see a guy there that's living the life. And if I look across the champions, the likes of Gvozdyk, the likes of Bivol, Beterbiev, and I see Kovalev, I can see him jabbing their heads off like he did tonight for 6 or 7 rounds. But what happens if Gvozdyk catches him the way he caught Stevenson? What happens if Bivol lands one of those shots the way he did on Joe Smith Jr.? What happens if Beterbiev, who beat him as an amateur, lands one of those shots? Is Kovalev then, does he still have it, the belly for the fire in the belly and the conditioning and the gas tank to come back against a guy like that? I don't think he does.
Sure. We have AA Boxing and Blunts. I've seen him obviously in the chat for.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
For obviously your podcast as well. Shouting out the evening. Good to see you in here, AA. Last King of Scotland obviously reacting, saying Yarde's out cold. Was he out cold? I've only seen it once. I don't think he looked out cold.
No, he was exhausted. I think.
Yeah. Leah Reaper in the chat saying Yarde didn't really have much outside of round 8. Yeah, I mean that was obviously his round there. I thought it was maybe his coming of age moment, but it just didn't turn out that sort of way. But again, like we've both said, didn't disgrace himself. Looked, you watch that round. If you watch that round like solely by itself, you'd think the guy would get him out the next round kind of thing. Kovalev looked really like on his way. Just unfortunately, Yarde didn't do enough or didn't capitalize on the next round to capitalize upon that moment. Toby's third attempt says Yarde get up and blooming punch his head off. All the will in the world that I think wouldn't have got Yarde up because he was just knackered. He looked absolutely knackered from obviously the output that he'd exerted. Maybe punched himself out to in a sort of degree because he didn't do too much after that round. To be fair,
Yarde punched himself out in the 8th. I thought he let Kovalev off the hook in the 9th round.
Yep. Last King Tommy Temper saying knocked out with a power jab. Damn. Again, like I said, I'm pretty sure I saw Kovalev do that to someone else. I just haven't got that at the top of my head. Last King of Scotland said, I agree, mate. Had one decent round. Apart from that, was taking shots for fun. Yeah, he got peppered. Like from after the 3rd or 4th round, there were just a couple of shots coming in, and Kovalev obviously showing his pedigree, where he's been from, and what he's learned in the ring to kind of exploit the gaps that Yarde was leaving for Kovalev to obviously then punch. And he was taking those shots. I do want to see in a sick kind of sense. I want to see what Yarde's face looks like. Because obviously the guy's never been damaged before. I want to see like visually kind of what effect that had on him, but I haven't seen that just yet. Tommy 10% it was a good fight. Both shouting out AA Boxing and Blunts as well. End of round 8. Kovalev's corner had some words with him. Kovalev asked if this was the last round. They told him if he takes punches like that, they were pulling him. So if what AA is saying is correct, and Kovalev was asking if that was the last round, then that just shows you the dire straits. We need the Russian fella back in who can probably tell us if that was what he was saying. The kind of straits and where Kovalev was in the ring.
So he thought the 8th was the last round. Is that what he was asking?
Yeah.
Must
Apparently
have had
so.
vodka in the water bottle in the corner or something.
Yeah, punch drunk and drunk at the same time. Yeah, so that kind of if that's how the way it was, that just shows you how kind of close yet so far away Yard was in such a small period of time. Unfortunately for him, he just didn't quite have enough, but still did well. Um, let's have a look. His trainer is just talking about the trainer as such. Okay, so yeah, the Kovalev comes through Anthony Yarde, who provided decent opposition for Sergei Kovalev. The Canelo fight looks like it's next. Are you going for Canelo, straight away after having seen that performance?
Mm, well, if Kovalev can obviously knuckle down and whip himself into some shape, which is a big if at the moment, because I thought that the wild days were over, and he said he was gonna really get himself on point. If he can, and he's a much bigger guy than Canelo, then obviously it's a completely different proposition. But at the moment, Canelo picks his shots really well. He's he balloons into a big guy himself. So yeah, it's Canelo's to lose at the moment for me. And look, I wouldn't go so far as to say I'm a Kovalev fan, but as I outlined when we were talking in the build-up, I like watching Kovalev fight. I think he brings that mysterious intrigue, and he is a bit of a madman. But he needs to knuckle down and really say, right, I'm going to stop with the antics and take the last couple of years of my career seriously. Still make some money and still make some legacy. And the Canelo fight will obviously get him well paid. But at the moment, Canelo's picking him for a reason, and he probably sees the same as what he saw tonight.
Mm-hmm. You see Canelo going to Chelyabinsk?
Wouldn't have thought so. It's 1:45 in the morning there, and it's a little bit colder than it is in El Mexico. So
Uh-huh.
I think there's pretty much no chance of it happening in Chelyabinsk.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Um, yeah, I probably see it being competitive between the two. I'd still love to see that tournament as well. I'd rather see that than just the Kovalev Canelo fight, but it still has a lot of intrigue. Just like this kind of fight had a lot of intrigue, but obviously Canelo's more of a known quantity than Anthony Yarde did. Um, but yeah,
Depends where the politics sit, doesn't it? Because you've got Bivol over on the DAZN side of things now. You've got Gvozdyk and Beterbiev. They're both. Hang on, what's Beterbiev now? Because he was involved with Aaron. And they said he was with the PBC. They seem to have made that fight anyway. And then you've got Kovalev, who has some links to Bob Arum as well. So hopefully the politics will make it happen.
yeah, 100%. I'd probably go with Canelo. I think a lot of people would probably go with Canelo as well. Maybe especially off of this performance now. I'd love to see obviously the instant reaction when we get off the stream. Hopefully get off the stream pretty soon. But the reaction from Twitter in terms of how people then view Anti-Yard. I think people will take a lot from that 8th round. I think people will probably say more about Sergei Kovalev. In terms of obviously the position he was in. But yeah, going forward for Sergei Kovalev, it says, I think, like you've kind of said, but it says a lot more about Sergei Kovalev's position to see where he was in that round to where he's depreciated from. But I just think he still has enough of it in him to have that experience and still be able to mix up like we both think so. But yeah, unfortunately, shattered dreams right here for me. Not getting to see The Rock pose in Russia. um, yeah,
I'm just looking on Twitter now.
sure.
Actually, I am just a bit of the instant reaction. I see Mark Williams said someone to Bunce that Yard lost. So I think Bunce was interviewing Yard, right? Chris Leaks said Tundi is fucking useless, needs binning off sharpish. Christ Yard is going to be sore in the morning. Pull him out for F's sake, says Paco. So a few people thinking it was a bit tough for him. Can see what no sparring does for you, Ryan Younger. Just a couple more here. Unless I see a massive punch, says Christoph, or a stoppage from Yard. This was obviously just before it got stopped. He looks exactly like he is, an 18-fight novice. And darts legend Chris Mason, also see him in our chat, did nothing wrong. He did everything wrong. For F's sake, fought totally the wrong fight, says Chris Mason. So a few of the people seem to be echoing what we're saying. Yard, lack of experience, didn't really come close to winning too much apart from the 8th round.
I think novice is a bit harsh.
Mm-hmm.
I think novice is really a bit harsh.
Maybe novice at the top level, perhaps he could be alluding to maybe that.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. But like I said, he's dipping into deep ends. He's going to be a novice, isn't he? If it's his first fight, don't want to pick on the guy in any sense. I just think obviously novice at top level, but I think that's just a little bit unfair. I saw obviously, I think maybe for me, instant reaction, I'm probably taking a bit too much from that round, and I'll watch it back and I'll see, those the other rounds where Anthony Yarde wasn't actually doing all that much and not, getting in, landing the shots like he did in that round. But yeah, as an instant reaction, I think novice is a little bit harsh. I thought Anthony Yarde did well, um, but yeah, I don't know if that looked like no sparring. I think that's kind of I don't think that's real now. I think there was probably sparring. Um, I think kind of the unknown appeal in terms of what they've been doing. I think that's kind of was a smokescreen, and I think they were actually doing kind of the traditional things, but it just wasn't enough for them. I don't know if that's the way you sort of see it as well.
I see a lot of people here seem to be giving good old Stevie Bunce a bit of grief over his interviews. So I'll have to go back and Booth as well. Tweeted, he said there is a big gap between potential and accomplishment, regardless of style. This is a sport where basic fundamentals are everything. When bringing new ideas, never forget the age-old lessons from the past. Anthony Yarde's journey is just beginning. Hashtag potential. So if I'm reading between the lines on
Yeah.
Adam Booth there,
Yeah.
he's sort of brought himself back round at the end to try and sound on message, but it's maybe a little side dig at the training team, and their sort of ideas possibly.
Yeah. I think I agree with what you said there with the little side dig. Do you think Yard would benefit from hopping over to someone like Booth?
I think someone like Booth could do him pretty well. Yeah, someone who maybe gets the muscle mass down a little bit and gets him focusing on his boxing. He doesn't have to kill himself in the sparring, but he has to get the techniques down. Carl Frampton says new trainer in the camp. So a lot of people seem
Lions in
to
the
think
camp,
that
new trainer in the camp.
Tunde is a bit of a hindrance to Yard, but I think what Tunde has done well, to his credit, is he's tried to take the pressure off his fighter by letting everybody aim the slings and arrows at him instead. But unfortunately, when these things don't come off, you are left with a little bit of egg on your face. But we sort of knew that there was a chance this could happen, and I'm sure Tunde's probably enjoying his moment in the spotlight. But a few people are pointing fingers at him. Yeah.
So let's go back to a couple of the events. So obviously we've discussed the not Anthony Yarde coming on in that eighth round. It was the ninth round of the 10th round, sorry, where it looked like Anthony Yarde was stopped. Now, would that have been way too early had it been the case?
It would have been too early. My initial instinct was, obviously, as we heard, I thought the fight had been stopped, and my initial gut feeling, which I often go with, was that's too early. I don't think the fight should have been stopped. So whenever I came round and realised that the fight was still going on, I thought, yeah, that's the right decision. Obviously, it hasn't been stopped. So yes, that would have been too early for my money.
Sure. Yeah. I completely agree. It did look like he was taking quite a lot of shots, and that tiredness after obviously the exertion in the previous round was evident. He looked like he was taking a couple of shots, not responding with anything. His chin was up in the air, just taking a few too many as he went towards the back of the ropes. It was just fortunate for him that that kind of barrage and what was happening there was coming towards the end of the round. Saved by the bell might be a little bit of the right expression, but then again, in the previous round, you might say the same sort of thing for Sergey Kovalev was maybe saved by the bell. A couple more punches that were landing flush, and he was in a similar sort of position. We might be having a different story, and I might be a little bit happy with my prediction in terms of Anthony Yarde. But in the chat, we have Yarde saying he's made some decent money. This is Air Boxing and Blunts. Yarde making some decent money, but needs to learn a lot for world level. Air Boxing and Blunts, what do you think he needs to kind of get himself on that next level, that next step, for him to then be competing maybe a little bit better against Sergey Kovalev? And we have Next Level Hydro. He won't change camps. It's a shame. So Next Level Hydro seems to think that he will stick with Tunde after this fight. They seem to have a really good chemistry together. In fact, actually, from the interviews I've seen, they almost seem like a mirror. Like Anthony Yarde's a bit of a younger Tunde in the things that they say, the jokes that they make, and how they interact with each other. I think that bond's pretty strong. Obviously, I don't know them to any sort of personal level, but I don't see the change either. I agree with you, Next Level Hydro, or even if it would benefit him, I don't see him deviating from Tunde, which is to his benefit or his detriment. We'll soon find that out. For me, I think I'd still have. What I would watch Yarde's fight with a lot of intrigue. It'd be good to see what level he's at, whether in terms of his opponent that he chooses to fight, whether he goes for another Travis Reeves type of opponent to try and build himself back up, or then goes for those kind of British fights. Obviously, the Buatsi one's out there. That's something fights that people want to see. Again, there's other people in the division as well that Yarde can mix it up with. But that'll be kind of interesting to know when it does come out his next fight.
I can't see them going for Buatsi.
No, yeah, no, definitely not. Yeah,
I think what they'll do is they'll say, look, he's got good experience at world level. They'll try and put a little bit of a shine on it, and they'll go back to the Travis Reeves level of opponent, and then hopefully someone like a Kovalev might have moved up or off or somewhere to maybe fight a Canelo, say for example, and the WBO might have made become vacant. And then if you look at the guys who are below Yarde, you would maybe give him a chance against people like Dominic Bussell, Vlasov, as I've seen days now, even Jesse Hart, those type of I mean, you got guys like Blake Caparello floating about, so you could see maybe them going that route and saying we'll rebuild him and try and have one more blast towards world level rather than dropping him down. A few of the guys' aims seem to be saying that they understand the corner told Yarde stop into the body, which if that's true, I think that's I haven't got any confirmation of this, but if that's true, that's a remarkable thing because the left hook to the body was working for Yarde, and it was what led to much of Kovalev's trouble.
Yeah, that's a pretty crazy thing to hear. Like, why would you? He got a lot of success starting from the body. That was kind of his building blocks. And was that after the round that he'd obviously looked like he was going to knock out Kovalev? Do you know if that was the case or? Because I sort of get it if it was and they tried to go for that knockout, but obviously he didn't really do anything in the round immediate after that. So if they told him to stop throwing to the body, he just stopped throwing anything really. But yeah, that's really crazy to hear. I don't know. Obviously, ifs and buts, but I don't know why. It makes no sense to me.
I'll have to check that out if they did tell him to switch to the head. I think that was a strange move, and that might be an interesting portend going forward to the Canelo fight, because obviously Canelo is an excellent body puncher with the left hook, the traditional corkscrew Mexican left hook around the corner, so he'd have a lot of success with that, as Yarde did tonight, I felt at times.
Yeah, on the other hand, Joshua Buatsi has tweeted out respect to the Beast Yarde, proved himself 100. Frank Warren's immediate take. Anthony Yarde has done us all proud tonight. He showed the heart of a lion and was seconds away from the win. I kind of echo that, to be fair. Experience was the difference in the end, and this experience will help the Beast Yarde. Congratulations to Crusher Kovalev, who showed why he's been such a great champion. I think that's a pretty good roundup of what happened there for Frank. I think he's been pretty honest there. Carl Frampton, MBE. I don't know if you said this one. Yarde can win a world title, but he must spar. I've never heard anything as ridiculous. Carl Frampton buying him to the smoke screen. I don't personally, but no. If it is the case, then yeah, he should be sparring. Sparring would help him. Again, ifs and buts, but
I think they have him sparring with novices or amateurs, they were saying, and it's rather than having seasoned professionals in the gym. Maybe that's the case.
It's definitely a lesson learned. I think hopefully he'll take that from this. Obviously, he'll be hurt from the defeat. He'll wake up with a sore head and a sore face, but hopefully this will kind of transform to a really good experience and him pushing on, like Frank Warren has kind of stated there. But yeah, he's gained the respect of his what's the word I'm looking for? His peers in Joshua Buatsi and others. We've got. I'm going to close the stream at 9, so we've got 4 minutes left. I won't take too much of your time, Steve. I'm going to ask you for your final thoughts. Before I do that, I'm just going to plug one last time. If you're new here and you're listening to this back, subscribe to the channel. There's much more boxing content coming your way. I do boxing from a kind of funnier lens, and I'm covering the contender division. Hopefully, I'm editing the second episode, and I've hopefully got, if it works out, an interview with a contender that was on the series. So I do look forward to that. Follow me on Twitter at TakeAims and Instagram at TakeAims as well. I've been joined by my special guest, Steve Wellings, the host of Nuthouse podcast, The Boxing Asylum. Subscribe to the Boxing Asylum channel and follow Steve Wellings at Twitter at Stephen Wellings. They're on Mixler on Sundays at 8 p.m. So join in. It's the Boxing Asylum on Mixler. Listen to one podcast, interact with the guys, and you'll be listening forever. So, as I said, just to bring this out and round this out, your final thoughts on the fight and what you saw.
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me on. I do appreciate it.
Thank you
And
for coming on.
also, no problem at all. Everybody in the chat, subscribe to Take Aims. Even people who come over listening from the Asylum, it's a great channel. It's growing and it's doing some good things. So keep listening, everybody. As for the fight itself, yeah, I fancied Kovalev to maybe blast Yarde away. I thought Yarde showed a lot of resilience, a lot of toughness, and he showed he can definitely hang, if not mix, at this highest level, but with a bit more experience, maybe a different corner than Tundi, as people have suggested. Yarde can definitely still do things in the sport. I think they'll try and build him back up to world level, strike while the iron's hot. As for Kovalev, as I say, it's a bit of a bold prediction, but I think he might be done at world level because I simply don't think he can get knuckle down and get himself into peak shape anymore, which is a real shame because he has a lot of good fights left in him. And with Buddy McGirt in his corner, decent strength and conditioning coach, lay off the drink, Sergei, and you could certainly mix against the top light heavyweight contenders. I don't think it's there. I don't think the ambition or the drive is there for Kovalev. And unfortunately, he's not a wasted talent, but he could do so much more with the back end of his career, in my opinion. Got the job done tonight. Well done to Anthony Yarde. Well done to Kovalev. Well done to Take Aims and all the chat. And we've had a good evening, everybody. So thank you for inviting me.
No worries. It's been a pleasure to have you on. My final thoughts would be that we've gone through a little bit of the emotions as such. We've gone from, Anthony Yarde being, not doing much, Anthony Yarde being on the cusp of a knockout, Kovalev being kind of confirmed as not being able to kind of maybe mix it up at the high level because he's obviously been close to a knockout by Anthony Yarde, and then obviously Kovalev using his experience to kind of come through, and maybe that's probably the telling factor, which it seems to be the reaction from Twitter, maybe what we've seen as well. The experience factor has kind of led to, along with a couple of other things as well, to Anthony Yarde being stopped in the 11th round, I believe it was. Good performance from Anthony Yarde, although he didn't do too much out of the one round, but he doesn't go out with any sort of disgrace for myself. Sergei Kovalev, as Steve has said, and I echo, has depreciated. For me, I think he can mix it up, and for Steve as well, I think he can mix it up. But maybe when it comes to those bigger fights, the Canelo fight that's coming soon, hopefully, as believed, he might be seen for the depreciating fighter that he's believed to be, and someone like Kovalev could then take advantage of that. But for now, I want to thank Steve Wellings for coming on to the live stream. The Boxing Asylum, the Nuthouse podcast, live on Mixer on Sundays. They'll be covering this, I'm sure, with the fervour and the banter as such that they have, and I can't wait for the show. It's the Boxing Asylum on YouTube. If you don't want to listen to it live, if you can't, it'll be posted on Mondays on YouTube. But the Boxing Asylum on Mixler, Stephen Wellings on Twitter, myself, Take Aims, your cornerman on Twitter and on Instagram. Subscribe to the channel and like if you listen to this back. Thank you much for joining me. We'll see you. I'll probably be live streaming for Lomachenko versus Campbell. I'll put that out later on, but that's probably the way it's going to go. But I thank you for joining me in the chat. This has been Take Aims. This has been Steve Wellings, going back to the Asylum as it was. Thank you for joining us. Goodbye.